be a has-been than to be and never was. You can get out quick and clean, or prolong the agony. Whichever you prefer, it's all the same to me. Just like the past, with a new color paint. Try to save a world that doesn't want to be saved. You scold it like a child when you think it's misbehaved. You say what you want, or say what you see, and you could say nothing. It's all the same to me.
Welcome to the program, everybody. Glad you could be with us, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between. I was reading a Facebook post recently, a conversation between a friend of the show, Lydia Yuknovich, the author and teacher, and the author and teacher, Monica Drake, who we hope to have on the show at some point. And they were talking about the meaning of a novel, the nature of a novel. What is a novel? What is its function? How does it operate in the lives of people? And it was a fascinating conversation between two people who, know a little bit about this, who I consider to be masters of that craft. And something that Lydia said really stuck with me. She said that a novel is something that changes you. It picks you up and drops you off in a different place than it found you. Even novels that are romps, that are superficial, even novels that you didn't particularly like or resonate with, that you wouldn't say, it was your favorite or changed your life, they still left an imprint on you. They still captivated you and pulled you into a context and into a character or a series of characters that left some mark on you, right? Like the people you meet in your life. I think that's a fascinating notion, and I was thinking about it in relationship to film. I went and saw this new Star Wars movie that's all the rage, and I didn't particularly like the film, and it's funny, I posted a little bit about this on social media, and of all the ridiculous inflammatory things I post, I got a lot of heat from my friends over this one, and a lot of people that just came at me to tell me all the reasons why I was wrong for not liking this movie. My son just said it's because I'm old and bitter and I don't like anything anymore, and I think he might be onto something. But I like things, I like stuff, and I wanted to like this movie. And what was fascinating was that after I saw the film and didn't particularly care for it, I was online and reading posts and reading articles written by people who did like the film, answering all of the arguments for people who didn't like the movie, and found myself being convinced by many of these, almost talked into liking the movie. And that even was more spectacular to me, more bizarre. Like here's this cultural artifact, this piece of art that I watched, that I interacted with. It wasn't particularly moving. And then I go online and I read a bunch of posts and articles from people for which the film was moving, who kind of talk me into rethinking my initial emotional response to the film. Fascinating, right? What is it about film that can generate this kind of conversation. Even a film as superficial as, say, Star Wars, right? And you know what I mean by superficial. What is it about movies that not only captivate the imagination, but generate this kind of activity and response from people? Why do they seem to matter so much when on one level they seem to matter so little? Why am I speaking of this? Well, our guest for this week is the film critic, author, and community activist, Shawn Levy. I'm so happy to have Shawn on the show. He's an hilarious guy. He's a walking film encyclopedia. And I've just had a lot of admiration for him over the years, which has only grown since I've had the opportunity to know him recently, and only grew more when we had him on the program. A couple of things I really enjoy about Shawn. He's one of those guys that has one of those film critics that has this, that has what I call the audacity of objectivity. And what I mean by that is there's a couple of times when we get into conversations about movies, about which Rocky movie was good and which ones weren't, and if there are any bad Coen Brothers movies. I was offering Burn After Reading and Intolerable Cruelty, and then Shawn just goes, no, you're wrong, right? And not, oh, well, different people have different ideas and different approaches and different opinions, but just quite seriously and quite frankly, you're wrong in that assessment. And what I love about that is that the confidence in it. Some folks might find off-putting who can tell one person that they're right or wrong for not liking something. But what's interesting is that Shawn didn't push back on me saying I didn't like the film. He pushed back on me saying it was a bad film. And that judgment does have an air of objectivity to it. When you're a person who's done something, right, who's devoted themselves to a craft for so long, you developed a kind of insight, a cultivation of a critical eye that goes beyond what most of us see when we see a film. Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book about this called Blink, where he looks at people that are, surgeons or airline pilots or art critics who've just who've done a task over and over and over and over again, and you develop a kind of second sense with it, right? That a second nature to it, where you can do the thing. You've done it so much and thought about it so much that now you can do it without thinking about it, and your vision in the area surpasses that of other people, and you achieve something like an objectivity because of the scope of analysis that has come from a lifetime of cultivation. And that's what you have with a guy like Shawn Levy. And it was such an honor to talk with him and tap into a little bit of that. Other thing I appreciated about Shawn in this conversation is that as much as he is a devotee and a film scholar and a fan of film, this only scratches the surface with the man when you get a little bit behind that. And that's fascinating because it takes so much time to develop that skill and to develop, to be a film critic at the level he's risen to. And yet this is only a part of who the guy is. He's a devoted father. He is a rabid soccer fan and member of the Timbers Army. And he is a motivated community activist in the work that he's done in and through the Timbers Army and with the Portland Timbers organization. And I can't wait to get into that with him in the conversation. He's also an amazing karaoke singer. If you ever get a chance to check that out, that's something that's worth being in the room for, I can tell you. His love for the city of Portland, his love for the neighborhoods of Portland, his love for giving back to the city and devoting his time and energy and money and talent and voice to going into neighborhoods in Portland that maybe have been overlooked by all the sexiness of Portlandia. And fighting to build, foosball and football, foosball. What are those courts called? Football courts and soccer fields. The intensity with which he focuses his critical gaze, not only in film analysis but in devoting back to the city of Portland and giving back to the city of Portland, is something that just gets a lot of respect from me. And I think makes him a model person for the kinds of conversations we want to have here on the Block. He's a guy that embodies transformation in the work that he does. He's a fantastic author, a funny individual, and just a huge, huge heart. We're joined partway through the conversation by another person, David Walker. David, you might remember, was on the show recently with Willita Emerisha and Adrienne Marie Brown talking about their compilation, Octavia's Brew. David was one of the contributors to that. He is also a longtime Portland film critic, mostly wrote with the Willamette Week in that capacity. And it was really great to get the two of them in a room together. We had a lot of fun. All hell breaks loose partway through the conversation. But to see the obvious love and affection and admiration and respect that these two have for each other was evident in the room. I hope it comes across on the air. And one of the things that struck me in listening to the two of them talk was, when you look at somebody who is a film critic, you think, how tough is this job, right? This motherfucker, he sits on his ass, watches a movie, and writes about it, right? But when you unpack what it actually takes to do that job, and you listen to them talk about their schedule during festival times and stuff, and having to watch 10, 12 movies a day and process that information and write about them, you realize it's a grind like anything else, and then to be able to coherently speak about this art in ways where you say something meaningfully about it to an audience, man, it's a tough gig. And so to do that job and to do it well for several decades, like Shawn has and like David has, it was a real honor to get to talk with both of them and have them in the room at the same time. So look forward to that. Our listener dedication for this week, Gigi Little and Stephen O'Donnell. Friends of the show, we've known them for several years. You will not find a more bizarre, delightful, elegant, and sweet couple in Portland and maybe in the world. Tireless advocates of the arts, delightful, loving, supportive people, always at events supporting local artists and authors and musicians, and two absolutely stellar artists in their own right. Stephen's art, if you do not know the art of Stephen O'Donnell, get to his website or his Facebook page and check out his painting. I can honestly say it's just some of my favorite painting that I've ever seen. A person that brings together so many opposites when you're looking at gender and identity and power and frailty and fragility and timelessness, but also a kind of antiquated feel. And again, a fragility, but also a ferocity, and the elegance, but and also a bizarre kind of feeling, and a familiarity, but also an alien kind of feeling. I mean, every time I look at Stephen's work, I can just stare at it for hours and just be enraptured at what the man can do with color and with form and with movement and with putting something on the canvas that is just so relevant and so familiar and yet so bizarre at the same time. His art is singular in the world. And Gigi, his wonderful partner, amazing author, the work that she does with Forest Avenue Press. They have a great book coming out that is a compilation of Portland authors called City of Weird, that has a lot of great authors in it. Mark Russell's in it, Justin Hawking, Kevin Samsel, Renee Denfeld, a lot of wonderful folks in this book. And again, just tireless advocates for the arts, tireless advocates for the city, beautiful, delightful people, always been very supportive of the show. Hope to have them both on soon. So this is a shout out to you both in that capacity as well. And we love you to death, Gigi and Stephen. It's just an honor to do this show and talk to the kind of listeners that we have. I started doing the listener dedications because I was blown away by our audience as I am by our guests. And, I mean when I say when the show is a love affair between us and the guests and us and the audience, we just are delighted to be a part of making community-based art and are delighted that you folks are along for the ride. So Gigi and Stephen and everybody else, thank you for being here. We love you to death. All right, folks, without further ado, our episode with Shawn Levy, and we want to thank Tyler Blackwell at the Portland Winterhawks for their underwriting of this episode, especially in a particular place of the episode. We'll let you see where that is. It's pretty funny when that comes up. I love these sports teams like the Portland Timbers and the Winterhawks that do so much for their community, do so much to give back, do so much to make their sport and what they do and their teams accessible and available to all levels of the community, and bringing people to the events and giving them a good time, and then going out into the community and doing things to reinvest in the community. So thank you, Tyler Blackwell. Thank you, Portland Winterhawks. Thank you, Portland Timbers, for your participation in this show and for your participation in the city of Portland to make it a better place, and for your investment in our youth. All right, folks, enjoy the episode, and we will see you on the other side.
Welcome to On the Block with Andrew Gurovich, a podcast about authentic people doing beautiful things. Enjoy the show.
You heard the show before? It's okay.
I have.
All right. Oh, thanks. That's cool.
I listened to two people I know. I listened to your talk with Lydia and your talk with Renee Mitchell.
Oh, cool.
Who I worked with.
Renee, that's right, at the Oregonian.
And she lives in my neighborhood still, I think.
Really?
She and her boys live in Southwest Portland near Wilson High.
She's something else. Yeah, she was at the Oregonian with you. Huh?
Oh, for years and years.
Well, and you knew her when you worked there? I mean, you guys...
Yeah, it was a very, when she and I were there might have been, there were hundreds of writing staff and editing staff. Yeah. So we were never on the same team.
Right.
Our desks were never on the same. I don't think we were ever even on the same floor. But you know one another.
You meet people.
Yeah.
Did you like working there?
Oh, I loved it. I grew up in a house that got 3 newspapers every day in New York City and on Long Island. I always wanted to write for a newspaper. It was a really remunerative job. It took care of my family, you know. I became a journalist in part because I was a dad when I was 24, and my skill set veered toward composition. I could write, and to get a job at a newspaper at a time when newspapering had some muscle on it was a great thing. So
I mean, so we're speaking with Shawn Levy, and we're doing what we normally do on this show, which is a soft in. Levy. Did I say Levy?
Yeah, it happens.
Levy. Nice.
on the East Coast, north of D.C., nobody says
So, Levy. Now the eternal question, do we leave that in?
Why not?
And
why
Shannon's
not?
correction.
Why not? No.
Why not? Because it makes me look like a jackass. That's why not.
No.
That's why not. Like a fuck ass.
I disagree. It happens to me all the time. So
well, that's why it makes me look like a jackass. I pride myself on doing the research here.
Okay. I should.
Shannon's giving me the this over there, and I'm going, what did I do already? Welcome to the program, folks, On the Block Radio with Shawn Levy.
Drove my Chevy to the Levy.
Chevy to the Levy. Now it's going to stick with us. So, you got into journalism at 24, you said. What before that? I mean, there's not much
No, I was
that.
a dad at 24. Yeah. I started writing movie reviews for in exchange for restaurant coupons. Well, when I was about 24 or 25. It's getting on. In fact, 30 years. In 1986 were my first published movie reviews.
And that was in New York?
That was in Newport Beach, California. I was living on campus at UC Irvine.
That's right.
My then wife was in the PhD program, and I had just left the PhD program. And I ran into a former student of mine who edited a weekly advertising-driven magazine that they gave away in Newport Beach. There's Fashion Island and the Newport Beach Business Center, quite a busy sort of little downtown.
Yeah, I lived in El Toro for a while, so I was right near there. Yeah.
And they had this weekly paper, and he said, I ran into him after a movie at a bar, and we got to talking, and he said, you should write something for my newspaper. And I was like, I'm a poet and literary critic by profession. You don't have room for that. He says, well, the way we've been talking about this movie, could you write about that? And I thought, sure.
Well, what was the film?
It was The Mysteries of Picasso. It was a Henri Clouzot film from Georges-Henri Clouzot from the 50s. It's a documentary about Picasso. And it's remarkable because he created a device in front of the camera of glass that Picasso could paint on. So there's the highlight of the film is us watching Picasso paint on the screen, in effect. and we see through the glass to Picasso. It's like he's painting on our eye.
Wasn't the woman that was his lover, isn't she still alive? She was on Charlie Rose a little while ago.
There's more than one, and I'm sure some of them are still alive.
Yeah.
He lived until the 70s, and he was with girls who were in their 20s and 30s at that time.
So there it is. Like the Source Family. Have you seen that film?
No, I haven't.
We had Bo Rinaldi on last week, and he spent some time in the Source Family. They were Los Angeles.
Yeah, I ate in their restaurant.
Oh, did you really?
On Sunset Strip.
You and Sissy Spacek?
And that's where Woody Allen has the car accident in Annie Hall.
What is he? Because he sits down and orders. He's got that great
the mung beans.
Yeah, the mashed yeast.
Exactly.
So you had an interest in film prior to that, or your background was in literary studies and poetry.
I grew up in a movie-centric house. My dad was a real film buff and turned me on to the great Warner Brothers movies and westerns and comedies. He was a big Bogart, Cagney, Eddie G. Robinson, John Wayne guy. And I was told, take a nap after school because On the Waterfront is on at 11 o'clock tonight. Wow. And you can stay up and watch it if you do your homework. And, this was in an era. I'm born in 1961, so I was a kid before VCRs, before cable TV. You could read about a movie for years and never have a chance to see it.
Wasn't that an amazing time period? We were just talking about that the other day when you had to wait for something to come around that you had heard about because the theaters would play first run stuff that if you lived in a place that had art house, New York had a great art house scene for a while, but if it wasn't there, you couldn't track it down, you couldn't see the film.
There were calendar houses in college towns and the more cosmopolitan cities. Portland always had Cinema 21, and in addition to new releases, they would show like a double bill of The Big Sleep and To Have and Have Not, or a couple of Marx Brothers movies, or Fellini retrospective. Yeah. But you could go years before one of those came around. And meanwhile, you read books and you'd read articles about these films. And when they showed once, they showed at 4 a.m, they showed cut up for TV with commercials, with the screen ratio all screwy. So
what year was that when you started writing reviews? Excuse me.
I was asked this once not long ago, and I remembered that I wrote reviews for my 5th grade class newspaper. I wrote reviews of The French Connection and The Godfather.
So those are technically the first 2 reviews.
Those are
God, are those around?
I don't remember.
What was the teacher's name? Mrs. The chances she might have that in a drawer somewhere.
No,
we could get big money for
weirdly,
that stuff.
I have boxes from
Throwback
my parents'
Thursday.
house. I bet it's in my dad's keepsakes that are in my garage.
Would be amazing.
That I haven't opened. I do remember the lead. On one of those 2 reviews, it began, "Good movies are back."
Oh, nice. Yeah. So even at,
I was like 10 or 11.
Even at 10, I can see him doing the KGW thing, right? You know what I mean? There you are in the house.
You got to grab the reader with the first sentence, or else they flip to the high and lowest comic.
So you're like a king of comedy kind of thing. You're down in the basement doing film reviews.
Well, it's a TV studio, yeah, but I might as well be.
No, I'm saying back at 10 years old.
Oh,
That's
10
amazing.
years old, yeah. I mean, there
remarkable.
were TV critics back then. Gene Shalit was on TV, and
your dad let you watch The Godfather and The French Connection.
Growing up like that with a dad who was so into movies at that time, I had the experience of seeing the new American cinema come around.
Yeah.
The Godfather, Taxi Driver, Chinatown, and seeing them with my dad, and each of us seeing them for the first time. They were new
Cuckoo's
movies.
Nest, Algiers Hunt,
and we had generational divides. I marked Chinatown as the time when he insisted it was a bad movie, and I was like, no, this is a masterpiece, and I was right.
Wow.
And I still hold it as my favorite movie, in part because you can't be wrong if you say Chinatown is your favorite movie, and in part because it was like a thing with my dad where I was like, nope, sorry, anxiety of influence, I've slain you.
Nice. That's really interesting. So, as you've heard the show before, as you said, and the show is about transformation. I'm really interested in talking to guests about how their life experience has led them into the work that they do and how they've transformed their experience into lives of meaning and beauty and purpose for themselves. And just hearing you talk about this, I hear two things in your conversation about this love of film that kind of was given to you from your father. One is, and tell me if I'm being too armchair psychologist here, but the work you do now is, in a sense, carrying on that tradition. You're still working with movies, and so in a sense, you picked a profession that's keeping you kind of connected to your dad. Relationally, right? But in another sense, with this anecdote about the Chinatown thing, there's a kind of surpassing element there. There's a breaking away from your father and his aesthetic taste and his sensibilities as well. And I mean, do you see that?
I think that those are both true. My dad was also he was a florist by profession. He a salesman and he sold your package of flowers for your wedding. Corsages, boutonnieres, the church flowers, the catering hall flowers, and he had been a frustrated comedy writer. He had one of those old...
I'm not sure if there's any other kind, by the way.
Well, frustrated to the extent that he became a florist.
Well, yeah, it's pretty frustrating.
Yeah, basically, no one was buying.
Yeah.
He had one of those old-fashioned half-moon-shaped gym bags.
Yeah.
That you see in like cartoons, and filled with his old radio scripts.
Oh, wow.
That he wrote.
Kidding.
He wrote his own ad copy, and he was always very proud of that.
Is he still alive?
No, he passed quite some time ago, 23 years or so.
Oh, so did he see maybe the beginning of your success?
He saw me sell my first book to a publisher. He did not read the book. It's dedicated to him, my biography of Jerry Lewis.
Okay.
But
he saw it sold, and so
he'd seen me working at magazines. I'd been senior editor of American Filmmagazine, which is a really prestigious job as far as those go.
Yeah.
And working professionally for a couple of years before that. So he did see me transition into being a professional journalist, really. But he never lived to read any of the books.
I want to talk to you about movies and about cinema and about if Star Wars ruined film or not, and a bunch of other stuff. But before we get to all of that, can we shift gears and stop talking about movies?
Sure.
Because for the rest of the time, we're going to talk about your books and about movies. Can we talk about the Portland Timbers for a second?
Oh, sure.
First off, congratulations.
Thank you.
I feel are in order.
What a very strange thing to have happened.
Yeah, a world championship. Or at least an MLS
championship.
Yeah, let's relax, yeah.
The night of the victory, and the victory party was amazing. The biggest bar in Columbus, Ohio, which did not host a viewing party for the home fans that night, was a gay bar that was having show tune night.
Nice.
So we wound up at the gay bar with Columbus drag queens singing Timbers Army chants.
That's
and people kept putting.
It's almost like you didn't leave town.
At one point I grabbed someone, and there were these women who'd never heard of us before on stage with scarves singing our songs, and I pointed to the stage and grabbed some young Timbers Army idiot like I used to be and said, "Look at that and tell me we're not blessed."
Wow.
How is it possible that this is real? The whole night I was saying to people, you saw it too, right? The whole thing. We won the game because I took a lot of acid in the 70s. I don't trust when I see something improbable.
Well, it was a really great thing, I think, obviously for the team, for the fans, for the Army, for the city. How long have you been a Timbers fan?
I've been following professional soccer since the mid-'90s. I was working on a book set in England. I always had an interest in it.
About the swinging years of England, right?
Ready, steady, go, the smashing rise and giddy fall of swinging London.
I want to ask you about that.
Yeah, that's a fun book. And there was enough of an internet then. I took an interest in the 60s. I asked the people who I was interviewing, the likes of Terence Stamp, Vidal Sassoon, Michael Caine, David Bailey, Mary Quant, what was the sexy football team of the time? Who did you guys... Oh, Chelsea. So I said, well, then I'm a Chelsea supporter.
Yeah.
And there was enough of an internet to follow a team in 1997.
Yeah.
And I started following Chelsea. In 2001, the Timbers came back, and my sons were both soccer players, recreationally, and then at Wilson High School. And they played for one of the original 1970s Timbers. The Timbers were back, so we started going to matches. And it was my boys who got me interested in the Timbers Army, which when I first started sitting with them was something like 40 people, 50 people.
Wow.
And today it's 18 sections of a stadium sold out, and really it's more than that.
Yeah.
And I became one of these people who helped that group catalyze and who was catalyzed by that group, talking about transformations.
Yeah.
I believe we have created something as a group of fans that goes beyond fandom, beyond the game, beyond the stadium. I think we are sort of goodwill ambassadors about the good news of Portland, Oregon in the 21st century. We're creative, we're fun-loving, we've got taste and culture. We're funnier, we're bigger and louder. We're better organized. We take, the 107 Independent Supporters Trust is the financial and logistical enterprise behind the Timbers Army.
Yeah.
That's a 6-figure-a-year netting business.
And this is an entirely separate organization than the Portland Timbers.
It's got nothing to do with the
the
Timbers.
team?
It was started when the Timbers were a minor league team under different ownership playing in a different league.
Wow.
And we've spun off so many things.
And over the years, there's been mostly a close relationship, but there's been times when the Army's been at odds with ownership or with the organization.
And that's why independent is part of the organization's name. We designed it. The people who wrote our bylaws, the volunteer lawyers, part of their remit was to create the most robust organization that could work with the front office and then be separated from the front office without hurting the structure.
Wow.
So that we were never financially dependent on them. We needed nothing from them. If they didn't let us store material in the stadium like drums and banners, we knew how to deal with that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we have always worked closely with them. The 107 has started a charity group called Operation Pitch Invasion.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that.
And I'm on the board of that. And they gave us our seed money, $2,000. And we're now partnered with the front office on 6 figures a year of building and maintaining soccer fields and futsal courts in what we call recreation deserts, areas where kids don't have kid-scale access, like reasonable access to quality recreational facilities.
Isn't that one of the things that's really beautiful about this game, which they call the beautiful game, is the simplicity of it in terms of what? There's 13 rules, right? You can learn
laws. Technically, they are the laws of the
laws.
game.
Sorry, see again.
I know.
Sorry about that, Shawn Levy.
No, that's all right.
We'll get back to that in a second. But yeah, anyway, Mr. Levy. Thank you, Shannon. It can be played anywhere in the world, right? What you need is a ball
it's the simplest
and a flat
game.
piece of dirt. You can draw the goal.
It's the most democratic game. It's the game in the United States that has been played by more girls than any other game.
That's another thing I was going to say is the gender gap between is almost nil, and in fact the women excel in the sport.
In the U.S.
In the U.S.
And one of the great things about this last Women's World Cup is they expanded the field, and there were like 7 countries playing in their first World Cup from Africa, South America, Asia, and my heart gets so filled by the prospect of young women in all those countries.
Wait till there's like
looking at
Middle Eastern teams too.
Exactly. When China, picked up the game, and the Chinese women are better than the Chinese men, just like the American girls are better than the American men. There are the greatest player in the world is 5'7", Lionel Messi, little guy.
Yeah,
in fact,
that's true.
Best player in the world is usually a little guy.
Yeah.
Pele and Maradona were little guys. It's
our friend Chris Ryan, friend of the show, and the Papa Bear, as I call him. He lives in Barcelona now again, and he's a Barca fan, and he's been there past 20-something years. And what a gift it must have been to watch to been able to watch that team in person.
Yeah. Well, that team for 100 years they've played like some of the most glorious soccer in the world. The thing that makes I'm very proud of Operation Pitch Invasion. We built, we ourselves, 4 guys, with the help of our Timbers community, the Portland Timbers and various corporate partners and the city of Portland, raised $200,000 and built a turf field at New Columbia, which is one of the most diverse census tracts in Oregon. There are kids from 22 countries within walking distance of this all-weather field that we put in.
Nice.
We named it after a Timbers Army pioneer. We knew him as General Timber Howie. He passed away soon after the stadium turnover was approved by the city council, and we learned that his name was Bless. Hartmut Bless.
Wow.
And he was born in Germany. He always played soccer, and in part he came to Portland because he met Portland Timbers supporters from the 1970s. And they said, visit our town, and he loved it here, and he moved here. He passed, so we named the field Bless Field.
Wow.
And again, I say to people, you don't think there's a bigger narrative here? A guy named Howie Bless should be among us from the start, and he passes, and then we build a field in his name.
That's cool.
With our sweat and our fundraising and our goodwill. We've now made that an annual thing. We're building a field every year of that scale.
That is remarkable.
We get out every year and fix up parks. We go to parks and we make the goal frames true again after a year of abuse and weather. We scrape them, paint them, fill in divots in the fields, spread sod, change irrigation heads. We've learned how to do all this as a community.
That's amazing. And you started with 4 people and $2,000.
Well, yeah. And now we have people, national organizations coming to us. We do have a plan to go national and teach other open source what we've learned about how to deal with your club, how to deal with sponsors, how to deal with cities and parks.
So that's a package you can take to show to other fan organizations, supporters groups.
There's an independent supporters council for soccer fans that's composed of any group that wishes to be part of it, who has a team to follow, whether it's MLS, whether it's the NWSL Women's League, one of the minor leagues, even college, and for want of like the equivalent of an American Legion baseball team.
Is there anything like it? Because when I hear about like the Blazers or other professional teams doing good work, it's the front office that does this good work. But you never hear about a fan organization of the Green Bay Packers.
Well, actually, the Packers are one of the few exceptions.
Because they're fan-owned, right?
Yeah. And there
Easy there, Levy.
There's college supporters, booster clubs.
Okay.
What sport has it traditionally is hockey, ice hockey. Particularly in the minor leagues, the Winter Hawks. There's a huge overlap between the OG Timbers Army and the Winter Hawks Booster Club.
Yeah, that's really cool.
There are a lot of people who are like, summer I'm soccer and winter I'm hockey, and that's what they do. And in the minor league hockey, they even... The kids, their kids, high school age kids are playing on those teams, and they live in the fans' houses.
I love that Portland has these 2 wonderful teams. Now, of course, the Timbers are getting a lot of press, but the Timbers and the Winterhawks are world-class organizations.
Well, the Thorns won a championship in their first year.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
I'll tell you what. There's a Timbers Army at a lot of soccer clubs. There's the equivalent around the world of a fan organization that does good works and is creative and comes into the world. Holy heck.
What's this?
It's like a Bob Hope Christmas special, and Jimmy Stewart just dropped in.
We got a surprise, folks. We're going to throw it to break. David Walker just walked into the house.
He must have seen my tweet of the Kugel.
Which means that 2 of the Northwest's preeminent film reviewers are in-house. I wonder how we're going to handle this. Let's throw it to break. You're listening to On the Block Radio. Our guest is Shawn Levy. I know, I'm kidding.
Not the one who directs all those lousy movies either.
Yeah, get the Levy from the crowd when the Levy breaks. We're going to go to break. We'll be right back. You're listening to On the Block Radio.
Thank you for listening to On the Block. We talk to smart people so you don't have to. We'll be back in a moment.
Exceptional community contribution. Operation Pitch Invasion, unleashing the power of the Timbers Army. Operation Pitch Invasion, a program orchestrated by Portland Timbers fans, funnels the rabid energy of the Timbers Army into maintaining unloved park and school soccer fields. This is work that wouldn't be done otherwise. The Parks Department simply has too much ground to cover to keep every field in playing condition. This summer, the group invaded some 40 fields on a single Saturday. The City Parks Volunteer Program Coordinator, Steve Pixley, who affectionately calls OPI a good mass of arms and legs, says simple touches like paint can make all the difference. A bright, shiny new white goal makes an immediate impact on the kids' eyes, he says, and they feel just a little bit better. In 2014, OPI scored big with its first major capital project, Bless Field, a patch of pristine turf in North Portland's New Columbia community that took $200,000 and countless volunteer hours to build. Opened in June, the kid-sized field already abounds with neighborhood soccer prodigies. How did a new nonprofit with no budget secure the land and permits, build a field, and pledge to maintain it? It was a team effort, from generous donations to the invaluable manpower of the Timbers Army, just like any victory on the pitch.
We were having a meeting thinking, what would we do if MLS came someday and we could bottle all that? And the first idea we had was to restore, maintain, and build soccer fields in the parks and schools and communities.
We talked about being part of the community. And here's the example. Kids back here playing soccer. It's been fun actually watching them. They're having a great time. But, the chance to be in a community, making a difference, getting kids active and involved, that's why we did Providence Park, and that's why we supported Bless Field.
Pick some words and describe what it's like to be on this field.
Fun and exciting, and when you make a goal, you can feel happy, and when you pass and someone makes a goal, you make them feel happy.
This field was identified as a soccer field for us because kids were throwing, traffic cones and jerseys down to define a field, and they were trying to play here anyhow. You wouldn't become an Olympic swimmer in a bathtub. You need a pool, and you don't become a good soccer player on a pitch covered with rocks and potholes.
These people know soccer, they know fields, they know how to bring it together, and it just says to the community that there's this effort that we actually cared enough to take time and be invested.
The benefits of running around on a soccer field in a team environment, the spiritual benefits, the physical benefits. At a professional level, a midfielder will run 11 or 12 miles in a 90-minute match. These kids aren't going to quite do that on Bless Field, but they'll be on the path.
This project was stuck, unfortunately, and raised a certain amount of money, but needed to move forward. And as we looked at the way we could work in the community through the Timbers and so on, the opportunity to provide the last bit of support needed to make this happen fit exactly into what we had talked about. And so it was nice to hear the role that Providence is playing in the community and what we're meaning around health and healthier communities.
Thanks for listening to On the Block. Talk is cheap, ours is free.
All right, folks, we are back for segment 2 of On the Block Radio. Shawn Levy and David Walker has joined us now, but we're finishing up a conversation about soccer and about the Thorns. When David surprised us and walked in.
I'm extremely proud of the things that the Timbers Army has accomplished, that the Portland Timbers Football Club has accomplished, that Operation Pitch Invasion has accomplished. But the thing that makes me cry with pride is Thorns matches. Yeah. Because the American League for women's soccer has the potential to be the big league in the world, which the men's league will never be. Right. Our men's league will never be as big as the English or Italian or Argentine or Brazilian or German or French or Portuguese or Spanish or Russian. I mean, it goes on and on. Costa Rican, Well, no, we're bigger than the Costa Rican. Mexican. But there's no competition for our women's league. And the Thorns draw crowds of 14,000 on average, which is the biggest women's crowd in the world by a factor of 4 or 5. Wow. there are more women watching a Thorns match, men and women, boys and girls, but a lot of young girls and a lot of women who have played soccer. In one match at Providence Park, you go to Barcelona and watch their women's team play, there'll be 400 people in the stands.
Wow.
We get 14,000 regularly.
And there was, what, 2 or 3 of the people from the national team?
From the national team, but from the German national team, from the Canadian national team, from the English. I mean, there were 7 or 8 Thorns in the World Cup. From all over the world.
That's really remarkable, and that infrastructure goes not just there, but it goes down from there to league teams and local girls playing. University of Portland has always had a great
University
program.
of Portland's an elite program. The women have won 2 national championships. The men, none. They've never even played for the national final.
Take that, patriarchy.
And that's one of the things about this being such a democratic game. I remember the first Thorns match, and people who follow the game of soccer are all experts, every single one of them. And the men especially so. And I'm at this match watching these women play, and there's a conversation between 2 women behind me who are talking tactics. And my first thought is, My next thought is, My third thought is, I'm going to turn around and listen to these 2 because they have an elite level of knowledge, and they are seeing things on this field that I have no knowledge of.
Isn't that remarkable?
And it was stupid of me to think anything other than that, but at some level in my brain, the thoughts were there, and they are gone forever. And so I personally feel blessed by the Thorns just for opening my, never mind the third eye, the first.
Well, it's important when we get exposed to those things that show us that our awareness might not have been fully
exactly. But also, it's just
experiences outside of our own. You went the right direction with that.
Yeah. But it's also just as fun as the Timbers match, and the Thorns won their title before the Timbers won theirs. So
nice. That's really cool. Let me ask you this before we get off soccer. I think the women's game is sometimes played a little cleaner than the men's game in terms of flopping all the performing, the lay it all out on the ground for 17 minutes. There's a lot of drama in the men's game that the women just play and get back up and run. Or no? It's the limited amount I've seen. Yeah, that was a
probably you're watching international play as opposed to club play.
Okay.
If you watch Thorns matches, you will see a lot of scrappier stuff. Okay. But it's the flopping thing that's got me hinky here.
Yeah.
I watched Karl Malone play in the NBA. He's the second leading scorer of all time. That guy spent more time on his ass than on his feet. And he was like Mr. Universe. So if we're going to talk about games where people flop, let's start with big crybaby Karl Malone.
Now, but the thing is, absolutely, I think that ruined the game, especially when he threw elbows. But when he flopped, he didn't lay on the ground for 14 minutes after he flopped.
Because it was, a different thing, and he got his way every time. He was given points. You can stay on the ground and pound your fist in soccer, and they'll just play over you.
I also think it actually hurts when you're running full speed and someone trips you up and you go down and face first.
The only protective gear they wear is shin guards.
Yeah.
The average midfielder
would actually get the wind knocked out of
it. There's no substitutes. There's no timeouts. 2 45-minute halves. The average midfielder runs 10, 11 miles a game.
Unbelievable.
These guys want to take a minute after getting knocked. I'm good with that.
You're fine.
Give them 2.
Yeah, Jim Brown used to get to sit down after.
Well, I'll say
watch the defense play.
I'll say this before we go on. It was great to watch them win. Celeste and I followed your chronicle of the victory on social media, and maybe this is a testament to. Our feelings for you. Maybe this is a testament to what kind of a writer you are or how you use social media, but we were as wrapped up in your explanation of the drama and how your experience was as anything, and it brought us both to tears. For some reason, your explanation of your experience through that victory got her and I both separately quite emotional, and so I'm very happy to kind of celebrate that alongside of you, and thank you for sharing that much of what that meant to you.
I'm touched to hear that. The weekend in Columbus, I was like, I described it to someone, I said I was like an emotional lava lamp and I was completely transparent. I was crying and laughing constantly. I was screaming. There was one video someone captured. In fact, it was an ex-colleague at the Oregonian who captured it and said, "Don't say where you got this." And it's me swearing and punching my chest savagely, and
like a maniac.
And I'm crying. I know for a fact, looking at myself, it's slightly grainy, but I am crying in this video. But I'm thanking someone for chanting. I hadn't capoed a match, stood in front of the Timbers Army and capoed in almost 4 years.
Wow.
And I asked the capos, could I do this? Because it's a position of honor, but it's also a way to keep not watching the game because it was so fucking nerve-wracking.
No kidding. Do you know our friend Justin Doty? He was capo for a while.
Justin's a good friend, sure.
The Doctor Who scarf kid, the cowbell guy for a while.
Broken Cowbell.
Yeah, Broken Cowbell, man.
Army name. I was Bickle.
Oh, nice.
Talking about movies.
Well, go Timbers.
I just have to interject
yes,
here
please.
because the interesting thing is knowing Shawn as long as I have, to see this sort of transformation that has occurred, like, as you become part of this community, this huge community, and this, there's always this like, well, that's Shawn over there. He's very reserved and he's very, straightforward. This is how you were before, and there's Shawn pre-Timbers Army post, and it's pretty amazing because I see this energy coming off of you all the time now. It's like when I haven't seen you in probably a year or two, but I've been seeing it now since this has happened. It's very interesting to me. It's interesting to see what the things that change our lives, the impact that it has, and it was definitely clear in Columbus too, because I was like, I sent you a note. I was like, what Columbus are you in? Are you in?
Right.
And I was like, well, you're not gonna have time, but if you do, go get a grilled cheese at this spot over here.
You know what? It was across the street from the gay bar where the where the evening ended, but I didn't go to eat.
Oh, you didn't get the grilled cheese?
No, I didn't get the grilled cheese because Merritt Paulson left a tab. He left his credit card at the bar for an hour for the Timbers Army, the owner of the team.
Yeah,
and people were ordering like quadruple Lafroigs and bottles of champagne, and I got some fries. I don't drink.
Some Merritt Paulson fries.
Merritt has done okay with me.
Dusted
He's
with
flown
diamonds.
me to 2 continents. I've got an interesting relationship. This is going to be with Tabloid. My next book project is going to be a memoir of this experience of community, this personal transformation that has accrued to my life around the Timbers and the Timbers Army. It's I describe it as like a middle-aged fever pitch. It's not about sports. I think I could write an entire book about soccer without giving the score of a game. Instead, it's about my personal transformation, about the transformation of Portland, about the birth and rise of American soccer, about the community that my friends and I built and how we learned to turn it into an elixir that we could pour into the soil like Miracle-Gro and make a new generation of players come up on surfaces that we provide them.
The giving back aspect is what really moves me, the motivation to go serve people in the community that don't maybe have the resources to come to Timbers games and to be, to go take soccer and soccer fields into to children, and that's really moving.
The 107ist outfits 6 or 7 Portland high schools' boys and girls soccer teams. They pay for their uniforms and gear. They have every year shelving parties at elementary school libraries all around Portland. They've donated books, bilingual books on soccer, to every elementary school in the 4-county area, down to Yamhill County and up into Washington. They've always been about that. We did Habitat for Humanity as the Timbers Army when there were 40 people in the Timbers Army.
And now that, the concussion thing is really, now that Will Smith is in a movie about concussions in the NFL, maybe white people will finally start paying attention to it. All these concussions in the NFL, right, David? And then more people start playing soccer is what I'm trying to get. Any thoughts on that, man?
Well,
on the Will Smith movie or anything?
I actually haven't seen the Will Smith movie, but what's interesting, I have a really good friend. He has 2 sons. They're, I want to say, like 7 and 10. And he's mapping out their professional soccer career already, which is, it's so interesting now because it years ago it was parents mapping out their kids, whether it was basketball or baseball or football. Those are the big ones. But now it's I see, especially a lot of black families, it's golf tennis and soccer.
Oh, no kidding.
And,
the Williams sisters, Tiger Woods, and the global game.
Yeah. So that's pretty interesting too. I get more of a thrill just watching my friends. I have a bunch of friends in the Timber Army, so it's I know when there's a game, just going onto Twitter, and it's like that's all that's blowing up on my feed, and so it's the same thing with. I'm that way with most sports. I don't actually watch them. I watch the people watching them because I have high blood pressure. I can't actually watch the game. So.
Well, speaking of high blood pressure, can I transition to the next topic?
We're going to talk about my blood pressure?
Yeah, we're going to talk about movies again. David actually was invited here. He didn't stop by randomly because I thought, what could we do if we got two of the preeminent Portland film critics into the same room?
Past tense.
Yes, I would say we're the old guard. I mean, we're the best.
I'm talking over time. Yeah, I don't mean like currently. I mean like enshrined. Yeah, in my book, right?
Emeriti.
Emeriti. Yeah, and I thought what would be cool was to maybe put you guys to the test a little bit with some film trivia, with the challenge.
Oh, boy. Oh, gee. Yeah.
So, Mike, hit it.
Is it Jeopardy music?
I knew this was going to happen.
I was on Jeopardy.
Were you?
I sleep every night in a bed that was my booby prize.
Oh, really?
Yeah, brass bed.
There it is. Can you hear it?
Yeah, it sounds like Benny Hill.
Match game.
Asking Benny Hill. It's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, really.
All right. Throw it to our announcer. This is really happening.
Welcome to the first and probably last ever Film Trivia Palooza-landia with On the Block Radio. A game show like all the classic ones from the 1970s, but hopefully less racist and rapey. Contestants compete for mediocre prizes and wonder where their lives and careers went wrong. And now, your host, the illustrious Andrew Gurovich.
Flawless so far, producer Mike, and thank you so much, buddy. All right, welcome to the program.
You can see this set. It's spectacular.
Here's how the game's going to go. Right, I'm going to read you film trivia questions, 1 point each. We have a scorekeeper right over here, correct?
Yes, sir.
1 point per question, and then a final Jeopardy finale spectacular. The prizes will be revealed at the end of the game. Do you have any questions, gentlemen?
I have half of my propose we go Spartacus on this and refuse it.
Well, if it doesn't go well, or at least if it continues to not go well, we don't have to air it.
So are you asking us individually questions?
Yes, I'm going to go one at a time, and I'll start with one. And if you get it wrong, the other guy has a chance to steal. Does that make sense? At the end?
As much sense as the idea that we're doing it.
So I'll take that as a yes. Question number 1. Now we have to decide who's going first. Do we do a coin toss? Do we do it like Cards Against Humanity?
Rochambeau.
Rochambeau?
Yeah.
A Rochambeau.
All right.
Get it.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Okay, yeah. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, double scissors, folks. Paper covers. All right, David's first. Question number 1. What 1969 American drama features a 20-minute sequence of footage filmed during the 1968 Chicago riots and was directed by the person who went on to be the cinematographer of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
I'm guessing it's Medium Cool. Did I get it wrong?
No, you got it right.
Okay.
That is the answer. That is what you will hear when you get a correct answer. By the way, when I was putting these questions together, I thought both these guys know more about fucking movies than I do, so I didn't really know how to pick questions.
And maybe even about fucking movies.
Yeah, well, and about fucking, possibly. Okay, so, question now to you. And this one is a two-parter.
Oh, crikey.
Right, and you got to get both parts right because you've written, I realized after we wrote these questions that you've written a book on this.
Oh.
So it's not quite fair, but we didn't know who was going second.
That's okay.
Give me a break. Where do you see the prizes? It's not that big a deal.
Oh, come on, they're fabulous.
David's wondering why he said yes to this. What 1972 unreleased film was directed by and stars Jerry Lewis as a circus clown who is imprisoned in a Nazi concentration camp?
That's the day the clown cried.
That is the day the clown cried. That is correct. That's the first part of the answer.
Okay.
Second part. According to Hollywood legend, who's the only person to have seen this film in its entirety?
One of the only persons is Harry Shearer.
Harry Shearer, damn it. Correct. Mark it down.
But you know the truth, right? There's like a
Harry saw it because his buddy was a director on the telephone. And the director saw it, and Harry saw it. And there's probably 20 people saw Jerry Lewis's cut of that film.
Really? So
Some are dead.
It was he owned a set of movie theaters, and he wanted to make content that would play in his theaters. And this was one of the films they made, was my understanding. Is that?
No.
Okay, great. Anyway,
Both
moving right along.
Both of those things are true, though. He did own. There was a Jerry Lewis theater in my town where I went to high school.
No kidding.
It was he was a pioneer of multiplexes in the suburbs.
Wow.
He was doing multiplexes in 72, 71.
And my take on what I heard about this film is, so he's a clown in Germany, and he's kind of past his prime.
He insults Hitler.
He insults Hitler. He's in a bar and he's drunk and he starts saying shit about Hitler. So the SS throw him in the camp, and then he decides he's going to try to cheer the kids up like a Life is Beautiful kind of thing.
No. He is.
Again, I know nothing apparently. Who researched this interview? No, go ahead.
They force him to lead the children into the gas chambers. They use him as a Judas goat.
As a what?
Judas goat.
Judas goat.
Yeah.
Judas goat.
Okay.
And they make him lead the children. He's like the distraction that,
like a Pied Piper.
Yeah, but specifically toward your doom. So
how have we not seen this film? That's amazing.
Because
he must have been coked out of his mind during this time too.
That's true.
Yeah. I got something right. Finally. Applause.
He was a Percocet head.
I know my cocaine. Oh, he's a Percocet, huh?
Yeah.
Do you know about this movie?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's like a single clip on YouTube, but that's and recently they made the news that
the BBC unearthed a trove of color negatives from the set.
So at some point we'll see it after he's dead, I'm sure.
Maybe not.
Well,
legal.
So I forgot to mention, when you get a correct answer, you're going to hear this. Oh yeah. When you get an incorrect answer, you're going to hear this. Fair enough?
That's
sadly true.
I have that same sound effects machine in my bedroom. So.
They mean opposite things in my bedroom, unfortunately. Question 3, we're back to you.
Okay.
Back to David Walker. What 1982 horror spoof has a cameo by John Landis, was adapted into an off-Broadway musical in 1992, and was called Totally Outrageous and Funny by Martin Scorsese?
Wow, 1982.
Cameo by John Landis was adapted into an off-Broadway musical in 10 years later, in 92, and was called Totally Outrageous and Funny by Marty Scorsese.
I'm totally drawing a blank on that.
Wow, I stumped somebody.
Yeah, you stumped me already. Third question in.
Nobody look at their smartphones.
No Google.
Got a shot? A guess?
No.
No guesses either way?
No, I don't like John Landis, so that's part of the problem. So.
Sean, guess?
No, I've got nothing.
No guess either way. That film was Eating Raoul.
Eating Raoul?
Wow.
Of course.
Of course.
John Landis was in it.
That's a point for
Paul
Andy.
Bartel.
Yes.
Paul Bartel and Mary
Horgan or something like that?
Yeah.
Oh, no, with a W.
Warnofsky,
Yeah,
and then the guy who was Chakotay on Star Trek Voyager, Robert Beltran.
Chakotay was. That's right.
Yeah. Oh, right.
He's
Raoul.
Raoul. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we know a little bit.
All right, let's relax. Yeah.
I don't accept the existence of John Landis because he's a killer. That's why.
Really?
Vic Morrow.
They killed Vic Morrow and those two kids.
Oh, all right, in the Twilight Zone movies. Yeah.
And
the Twilight Zone movies.
after which Eddie Murphy sat on a talk show and he said, John Landis has a better chance of working with Vic Morrow again than with me. And then he made Beverly Hills Cop 3 with him.
Exactly, yeah. And that was it's sort of symbolic for me because not only was that movie so bad, but I was like, There's more than one reason to lose respect for Eddie Murphy now.
Exactly. That's why when Eddie was nominated for the Oscar, it was like, no, because it depends on people who've met him to vote.
Yeah.
Did you see his SNL thing? What's going on with him, man? Can he give the music up and go back to comedy at some point?
I don't think he can.
He's got no interest.
Yeah. No, he's one of the richest people in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And at some point he'll do something. I'm sure that'll it'll surprise us, either pleasantly or horrifically. But yeah.
I mean, you can make a case he's one of the greatest stand-ups ever lived.
Oh yeah.
All right, we're gonna see what the hell that was.
Raoul off Broadway, 1992. Wow.
Yeah.
Question 4. We're back to who are we to now? We're over to Shawn.
That's Shawn Levy.
Thank you. Hey, keep it down over there. Question 4. What film's total shot footage was over 200 times the final length of the film?
You know, I can think of a couple that have this reputation. One of them is Greed by Erich von Stroheim.
Good guess.
A couple of von Stroheim, Merry Widow.
Unfortunately. Tell us about that film.
Well, these are films that they don't even exist, really. A lot of the film was destroyed. It wasn't saved. So if you ever see Greed, you'll see a 4-hour movie, about half of which is stills. Of scenes that are lost that might have been 10 minutes long, and they'll just show them for a few moments on the screen. That's all that's left of it. And it was made in the silent era. He wanted, it was like Berlin Alexanderplatz. It was supposed to be like an epic length retelling of a story.
Wow. All right, so David, what film total shot footage was over 200 times the final length of the film?
I'm drawing a blank on the title, of course. It's that Michael Cimino film.
Heaven's Gate.
Heaven's Gate.
Oh, Heaven's Gate. Lock him in, Mike. Lock him in means nothing, but
Heaven's Gate is a great
guess.
Yeah.
Great guess. The answer is 2001.
2001?
200 times the final length of the film.
But Kubrick didn't have OCD.
He had all that extra money to use that he got from faking
NASA,
the moon landing. Yeah. Back over to David. How we doing? Everyone loving this? Is anyone tuned in still? Thank God no one listens to this program, so you guys' reputation is fine. There's 12 people.
I don't even worry about my reputation anymore. So.
What film's horrible working title was kept by the studio because the lead actor said it was the main reason, indeed the only reason he took the role?
It's really...
Maybe these questions are too random. They're good?
Well, the worst title of all time, this movie wouldn't count, but I'll say it anyway, which is The Incredibly Strange Creatures That Stopped Living and Became Mixed Up Zombies.
That's a title?
Yes, that's a title.
And became...
So that's my guess, but I know that that's not it.
One more time on the guess?
The Incredibly Strange Creatures That Stopped Living and Became Mixed Up Zombies.
Mike, lock him in? Oh, so close. Shawn, over to you.
Wild guess, Touch of Evil.
Oh, good guess.
Not it.
Lock him in? Oh, the answer. Snakes on a motherfucking plane.
Oh, of course.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Now, here's the thing
I thought we were talking about movies and not memes.
Exactly.
And not memes? Well, here's the thing. Here's what makes this notable. You can tell me if this is right or not. I just learned the other day that Samuel L. Jackson's movies have grossed more than any other actor of all time.
Well, partly because he's made so damn many of them.
Yeah, well, right.
But also he's in, 3 Star Wars movies, there's a couple of billion right off the top.
Yeah, right off the top.
The 2 Avengers movies. Yeah, Morgan Freeman's up there too. How
much did The Contender make?
But Sam Jackson appears for like a minute in Iron Man movies. Yeah. So those are in his credits.
His finest role was as Flava Flav's dad in 911 as a joke video. He's actually in that. Fuck yeah, I knew that.
I like him in. Does he even have a line in Goodfellas, or does he just keel over?
He's. It's sort of like background noise. Yeah. Stax Calhoun. I just rewatched that the other day.
All right, so moving forward, no one's got a question right yet?
No,
we got one?
We got the first
Each got one. All right, we're going to tie. Question 6. Who do we start with? Back to Shawn. I'm glad someone's paying attention here. What famous 70s porn star is an extra in Ghostbusters? Movies Not Memes is going to be the name of my next podcast.
Ghostbusters.
Harry Reams?
Oh, nice. Is that a real guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, like you're offended. I don't know that.
I guess it's not.
I know
Harry
John
Reams.
Holmes. I know Harry Reams. Lock him in. David? Famous 70s porn star in Ghostbusters.
Marilyn Chambers?
Oh, good guess. But alas, the answer is Ron Jeremy.
Ron Jeremy?
Really?
Was an extra.
The Hedgehog.
Hedgehog was an extra in Ghostbusters. All right, back to David. What fantasy epic did the Soviet Union make a full version of in 1985?
In 1985?
Yeah, they made a full version of a film.
Was it Solaris?
Solaris? Good guess. Have you guys seen this?
No, but
Sean?
Could it be a Tolkien?
Could indeed be.
Lord of the Rings or Hobbit? I don't know which, but...
Take a guess.
Well, the full means Lord of the Rings.
Oh, it was The Hobbit. You guys got to see this. It's on YouTube. It's a full-length feature made by the Soviet Union of The Hobbit, and it looks like the full budget was $175, and somebody's got $174 in their pocket still. Right? It's unbelievable.
All $175 up on screen.
There's a lot of
walk down the aisle.
Yeah.
Solaris was in the 70s, wasn't it?
Solaris, yeah.
That was...
And when was Bakshi's Hobbit? Is that 70s or 80s?
Oh, Bakshi did the 70s, yeah. Like
4 or 5?
And then he did the Lord of the Rings stuff in like 80 or something like that. They did
some footage.
So how's the game going? This feels like a horrible...
It's 1-1.
Yeah.
That means you picked really good questions.
It feels like a gigantic waste of everyone's time. So we should keep going? Let's keep going. That's right. All right.
Let's see how much you can embarrass us.
Yeah. Well, no, trust me, I'm the embarrassed one here. Question 8. We're back to David.
No, Sean.
Over to Sean. In Spike Lee's Bamboozled, the house band for the fictionalized TV show the film depicts is played by what real-life band? This used to be a 2-part question, but now I'm just going to... Oh, okay, or what was that band's name in the film?
I certainly don't know their fictional name. I'm going to guess The Roots.
The Roots. Lock them in. Oh. There it is. Well done. Did you see Chirac?
Nope.
Not gonna?
Nope.
We went
Wise man.
and saw it, and there was a panel discussion afterwards with S. Renee and a few other people, and folks eviscerated it. It was really interesting to listen to them talk about the film.
That sounds like an ass whooping, not a panel discussion.
Yeah.
It was very difficult to buy what's his name as a gangster.
Nick Cannon?
Nick Cannon. But that wasn't the problem. That wasn't the problem with the film. I'm a huge Spike Lee fan. I really am. But I just think his stuff can be really uneven, and I think this film was difficult to get through in a lot of ways.
I still think
there's some brilliance in it. Yeah, on balance, he's a great American filmmaker.
He's not a great American screenwriter. That's for sure.
No.
But something like today, I watched a little bit of Inside Man.
Inside Man's great. But going back, Crooklyn was phenomenal.
I loved Crooklyn.
Yeah. I love Bamboozled. That might be my favorite film.
Bamboozled I had issues with.
A lot of people hate the
Do
end.
the Right Thing is like transcendent. Clearly, like whatever quirks he has as an artist, he was outside of them, and he was just in another zone, and made a masterpiece. And you look at the body of his work. There are always flashes, always something to take away.
I think what do you think? I think the documentaries he's made lately have been more powerful.
Yeah, as a documentary filmmaker, but sometimes he even has trouble in, he puts too much of himself into actually on screen. There are these moments where it's like, you didn't need to say anything, you didn't need to show yourself, you are not part of this story.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's...
Let the story tell itself, huh? Fascinating.
I always call him the Black Oliver Stone because he just can't get out of the way of his own ego.
That's an excellent
gotta put that in
comparison.
there every time.
I think both of them would have had different careers if they had a producing partner who they absolutely trusted, who said yes to this, no to this, and they said okay.
Do you think In Your Auteur needs somebody to reel him in a little bit as well?
Who does?
Yeah, Inarritu, Inarritu. Because I've heard people say that that the problem with The Revenant is that it's just too singular and too bleak. That he's a guy like Charlie Kaufman. He needs someone to lighten him up a little bit. And Birdman was good.
I just find him very heavy-handed in Inarritu. But Birdman was very light. And he's always been a masterful filmmaker, but it's a different sort of issue. He's trying to make a different type of cinema. You know, he's trying to his work approaches like I don't know. I think of Hemingway or Faulkner telling naturalistic stories at great excruciating length sometimes. And with Spike, it's just like I'm just going to dump everything in this drawer on the screen.
Hey, look, I found some stuff out back too.
He gets a compelling performance out of Michael Rappaport. I'll give him that.
Well, no mean feat. I'll correct you.
Louis C.K. did as well. All right, we're way down the rabbit hole. Mike, hit the music.
Question 9.
That's me.
Music. Oh, Mike. Oh, Mike. Producer Mike. Mike's over there doing lines of cocaine.
No, it's
Samuel
dabs.
Jackson. Dabs. Yeah.
Way faster.
All right. Question 9. Who are we back to? Gotta have no short-term memory. I wonder why that is. Which director, a leading light of the French New Wave, had a minor role in an early Steven Spielberg movie?
Oh, that's Truffaut.
Oh, and what was the film?
Close Encounters.
Nice. I was just trying to. Nice. Well done. Hang on. Not official. Oh yeah. Mike, kill the goddamn music. He bumps it. Nice. Back over to Shawn. We're almost done with this, gentlemen. Are you happy?
Yeah.
You should never agree to do nice things for people, Shawn. You should have never left the house. You brought the Kugel.
Yeah, there's Kugel. David has not seen the spread in the kitchen.
The Kugel's cold. We're doing this dumb thing.
It's Kugel.
When we finish this game show, we have prizes, and then we're going to come back and talk about your books. Okay. Is that all right? Okay. We're not totally off the rails. What 1972 crime drama pushed The Godfather out of the #1 slot in the nation? Found this fascinating. Godfather was #1. This movie pushed it out. I can tell you the director, but that would give it away.
I think I'm pretty sure I'm wrong, but I'm going to say The French Connection.
French Connection. Mike, lock him in. David, you got
Superfly.
Superfly is the answer.
As absurd as...
Claps from the crowd.
And of course the director would give it away.
Score tally.
David Walker has 3, and Shawn Levy has 2.
3-2. Close one. All right.
Jeopardy.
There's one more question, and then we go to Final Jeopardy. Who are we starting with this round? I think we're back to David.
Yep.
Richard Dreyfuss's part in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead was originally played by which actor who abandoned the film midway for a bigger paycheck?
Oh, well, I'm just going to have to pass because I have no idea.
No idea.
Yeah.
Answer is Yoko Ono. No, I'm kidding. Kidding. Shawn, which actor originally played Richard Dreyfuss's part in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, but left for a bigger paycheck midway through the film?
It's such a memorable occasion that I've seen this film and I don't even remember Richard Dreyfuss.
He played the not that this will help. Yeah, he was like the thespian.
Kenneth Branagh.
Kenneth Branagh is a good choice. Yes. Mike, lock him in. The answer is Sean Connery, Trebek.
Oh, for God's
I had to have
sake.
a Sean Connery question in there just to
Suck it, Trebek.
suck it, Trebek. All right, so final tally at the end of the round
Is 3-2.
3-2.
Yeah,
that
nobody
didn't
got
change.
Question number 4. Yeah. David got question number 10, which put him in the lead, and then question number 11, nobody got.
All right, so going into Final Jeopardy, this is a big deal, right? You guys have pads next to you right there. Each of you take one of them and a pen.
Oh, thank you.
Note for the production staff, we're never doing something like this again. It's a gigantic fucking waste of time. No, I mean, I'm loving this. What am I talking about? Cut that out in post. Final Jeopardy.
Do we have to answer in Jeopardy format?
Yes, you have to make... God, this is tough. Maybe. No, just write the damn answers down. I won't do that. You get to wager. You have 3 points. You have 2, so...
Okay.
You can wager up to as many as you have.
Okay.
Or none.
Okay.
Right? It depends. You got to play this right.
You're betting.
But if you get it wrong,
you lose
those points. right? So there's a lot going here.
So am I writing down the number?
Write down your wager, and then also, here's the question. Name all 3 movies that have been filmed in Oregon that also star Corey Feldman. Mike.
Yep.
Who, of course, we have to agree, Feldman was the wilier of the 2 Coreys, right?
Over Haim?
Yeah. He was a little too pretty boy.
2 mediocre Jews that dominated these zany movies in the 80s.
And both protégés of Julia Phillips, actually.
Really?
Yes.
Who's that?
Julia Phillips was one of the producers on Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh, nice.
So if we have to get all 3 or it's nothing, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's how it works. I was going to give you partial credit. We can send it to the judges.
Let's just see where they come in at.
There's 3 films that Corey Feldman has a small role in. One of them not so small.
2, go. 2? No.
Oh boy. Well,
is that it?
That's a minute.
Finish up your answers, gentlemen.
all right. Well, I just lost everything.
Shawn, how much more fun was this when we were talking about the thorns? Be honest. All right, let's start with David. What do you got?
Well, I wagered all 3 points.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so I've lost. Stand By Me, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Dream a Little Dream.
Dream a Little Dream. Stand By Me you had, but the other 2 are not correct. And so that brings your total down to 0. What did you wager?
I wagered 2, and I also have 0.
Oh, nice.
I had The Goonies, Dr. Giggles, and Breaking In.
Dr. Giggles? What?
Dr. Giggles.
Yeah.
So it looks like there's a tie here, which I was prepared for.
Yes.
Because the correct answers are The Goonies, Stand By Me, and Maverick.
He was in Maverick.
He was in Maverick. He had a small role in Maverick on that damn boat.
We were to believe that Mel Gibson seduced Jodie Foster.
Yeah.
How's that for hot?
That's right. Oh.
If anybody could, it'd be Mel Gibson. Okay, we have a tiebreaker question now, and I guess we're going to have to do the same thing and have you write it down. This is exhausting. Okay. Name the 1962 French science fiction film that inspired Terry Gilliam's 12 Monkeys. Mike,
I see
the
some
music.
waving.
True or false?
Do we have to listen to the whole song?
No. All right. Give David another minute.
No, I totally can't remember the name, so it's like, it's like remembering my grandparents' phone number. It's not going to happen.
All right, answers?
La Jetée.
La Jetée is the answer. Which means our winner, Shawn Levy. Tell him what he won.
Well, Mr. Levy, you have won your choice
of the following
Your
gifts.
choice of the following gifts. A signed copy of the DVD Julian Donkey Boy.
Signed by me.
There it is. Right there.
Signed by the host of the
I
show.
hope it wasn't signed by
Harmony Korine.
Signed by the host.
Yeah.
Then I'd want it sterilized.
The illustrious Andrew Grovich. Or the prestigious host.
I wrote this.
The text,
I wrote these.
Prestigious host of On the Block Radio, the one and only Andrew Grovich. Oh my God. Leaving your incoming call message in the voice of Marlon Brando, Adam Sandler, Gilbert Gottfried, or another celebrity of your choice.
These are terrible impressions, by the way. I'm not good. I'm not like talented. I don't want to give you the wrong idea.
The worst impression of Christopher
Basically,
Walken
it sounds
ever
like
heard.
me, but breathing heavily. Anyway.
Or 4 tickets to an upcoming Portland Winterhawks home game of your choice.
Really?
Your choice.
How is an actual worthwhile prize in the group?
That's the way we roll.
So what are you picking?
We're going to go to a hockey game.
You're going to the hockey game. All right. Clap for him.
It is.
Those come to you. We want to thank Tyler Blackwell at the Portland Winterhawks in group sales. If folks want to get a hold of him, actually for group sales or for other events, they can contact him at 971-230-2961 or Tyler B at winterhawks.com. That's Tyler Blackwell over at the Winterhawks. And how great was it that we were giving them a shout out earlier in the show before you even knew?
Great.
That's like reverse payola, man.
Hockey.
And we do have runner-up prizes.
Runner-up prizes as well.
As well. We have a sacred candle with the image of our Blessed Father, Lando Calrissian.
That's all I got. I don't even know what the other
You want to go to a hockey
White
game?
Child.
With White Child.
With White Child.
Yes.
An angelic little white girl child.
No.
And
Is that really Lando Calrissian?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Come on. Hey, we spare no expense here on the Block Radio, Mr. Levy.
You know, I still find myself laughing at his send-up of Colin Powell from Undercover Brother.
Oh God, it's been so long.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I loved Undercover Brother.
Yeah, I
John
did too.
Ridley.
Yeah. Yep. John Ridley wrote that.
Dave Chappelle was in there too.
Driving the big Coupe de Ville convertible with an orange soda and not spilling a drop.
And by the way, how people are going to tell me that Stormtrooper was the first strong black character in a Star Wars movie? Because this guy ran a whole damn city.
I know.
In the clouds, motherfuckers.
hard to
And
do.
Sam Jackson was the head of the freaking
was a Jedi
Council.
too. Yeah, hello.
In fact, you put those movies in chronological order, he's the first person to say that may the Force be with you. And he has a purple lightsaber.
Yeah, that's all pretty cool.
You know?
Jesus Christ.
I'm all about purple.
Lavender.
So, and
you get another
it's
gift.
not over
wow.
yet, Mr. Walker.
Okay.
We also have a DVD copy of the softcore gay porn Troy by Wolfgang Peterson, starring Brad Pitt, Eric Bana, and an oiled up Orlando Bloom.
This is yours as well.
Peter O'Toole.
Peter O'Toole's in that.
Peter O'Toole, who Groucho Marx pointed out his name is a double phallic.
Is he oiled up?
A double phallic?
I've actually never seen this movie.
Peter
so-
O'Toole.
You haven't? Do yourself a favor and take that right down to that
Well,
CD Game
Peter
Exchange
O'Toole.
right now and get something.
Okay.
Get $4 for it.
I mean, you know, it's as good as a Steve Reeves movie.
Oh, well, there you go.
It's as good as a Wolfgang Peterson movie.
Ringing endorsement.
Yeah.
He made the one good one.
He made Das Boot.
Das Boot, which
and
is
he
fantastic.
Made, In the Line of Fire with Clint Eastwood.
Oh, that's all right. That's
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
first wooden gun with John Malkovich.
Yeah.
Makes that wooden.
And he made a crazy ass film noir with Tom Berenger. It was called Shattered.
Never saw Shattered.
It's kind of lurid and bloody and you know there's a lot of nudity.
I love that under this music, right? You know,
Yeah.
lurid and bloody and nudity. All right. So I think that's the show.
Thanks for listening to OTB's Film Trivia Palooza Landia. 2 may enter, 1 may leave.
And a Turner reference to close us out. All right, I think we're going to go to break now, folks, and reset. Our two guests are probably going to run for the goddamn door. But when we come back, we're going to talk more with Shawn and David about serious stuff, about the books that they've written and that they have coming out. You got some stuff going on with DC that I want to ask you about. And I want to talk to you about the DeNiro book and some of the other stuff. Does that sound good? All right, we'll close that out. Folks, you're listening on the Block Radio. We will never hear this game show music again. We'll see you on the other side.
You've been listening to On the Block, a podcast for bonobos only. No chimps allowed. Be right back.
When you were a little kid and you thought about what you wanted to be, teaching was at the top of your list. But things changed. And as you got older, teaching didn't seem like the best option anymore. So you're thinking you'll be something else. But what would your 12-year-old self say? Now you want to be a doctor. You don't think teachers save lives? 25 at a time. An actress? Try playing a different role every time the bell rings. How about a scientist? Ever heard of physics? Chemistry? Who do you think teaches that? Teachers today are breaking down obstacles, finding innovative ways to instill old lessons, and taking learning far beyond the four walls of the classroom. It's time to recognize that great things are happening in teaching and put it back on your list. Don't try to convince yourself otherwise. You had it right the first time.
Find out how you can make more at teach.org. Make more. Teach. Brought to you by Teach and the Ad Council.
I never thought this would happen to me.
I do it all the time.
I lost my job because of it. It's ruining my relationships.
If I would just take half a second to look before I hit send. Oh my god. Why do I always do this? Ugh.
I texted my boss to give me erections. I meant to say directions. Sometimes I don't even notice when it happens.
Why would you say that? If autocorrect affects you or anyone you know, we're here to help.
Double check. Proofread. Pay attention.
Brought to you by Autocorrect Victims Anonymous.
Can't you just turn it off?
No, I can't. I need it. And I don't know how.
If the music make you move, 'cause you can dig the groove and groove on. Groove on. If you feel like you wanna make love under the stars above, love on. Love on. If it's something you wanna say, and talking is the only way, rap on. Oh, rap on. 'Cause whatever, oh, you do, oh, you got to do your thing, yeah. If you feel like you wanna scream, 'cause that's your way of letting off steam, scream on. Scream on. If you feel like you wanna sing, 'cause singing is your thing, sing on. Sing on. If you wanna make love all night, and you feel it's right, right on. Right on. 'Cause whatever, oh, you do, oh, you got to do your thing now. Do your thing.
This is S. Renee Mitchell, creative revolutionist, and you are listening to On the Block Radio.
English, and it's part of a certificate program for however the certificate programs work. You either get your, you get your English in, or your BA in creative writing or some other minor major within the English department, and then you can get this certificate in comic book studies. And they're trying to get make it an actual major, and then move on to getting a
bachelor's.
No, master's program.
Master's in MA.
Because there's only one university in the country that offers a master's in comic studies right now.
Really? Where's that?
In Vermont or someplace?
No, there's one. It's in the Bay Area. They do have a bachelor's program at the one in Vermont, but I don't think they have the master's.
Do you know Katie Moody? She used to be at Dark Horse. She's first generation Timbers Army, and she went back east to
she studied there. Yeah,
funny books as she called it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, the world of academia will come up with anything to make more money.
Right, right.
Well, there's a ceiling to the money in academia.
Yeah.
You know.
Tell me about it.
But there's
man.
a floor too. And it's I came. If I hadn't run into that guy at the bar, I might have returned to academia.
Really?
I had 2 kids. I was in my mid-20s. I was teaching 5 classes at a time at different community colleges and high schools.
Freeway professor.
I taught on a Marine Corps air station in El Toro. There was one of these University of Phoenix type programs called National University. Probably still exists.
Yeah.
And I used to teach there. And I ran into this guy. PhD program was not for me. Not because metabolically, I just couldn't see spending my 2 years writing a book. 3 people would read it, get put on a shelf, and that was the end of it. I had a much more immediate voice and metabolism.
And so you started writing these film reviews, and what happened next? Like, you got an aptitude for it? You started getting... How'd you end up at the magazine from there?
I was so stupid that I thought if I read in the LA Times every day under writer and editor in the want ads, I would find a job.
Really?
And I did. I got a job as associate editor of Box Office Magazine, which was a trade publication for movies, and was notable. We would write about things like armrests on the chairs, should you get cup holders,
Very exciting.
New innovations in, popcorn machines. We literally wrote those articles, but because it was a very old publication, still in existence. Walt Disney was a subscriber when he was coming up in Kansas City. It reviewed everything. Reviewed anything you as an independent theater owner might show, including pornography.
Wow.
This was in the mid-'80s. And we had a couple of correspondents. One was in Massachusetts who sent in the reviews every month of the porn films that we were reviewing.
No kidding.
I and the senior editor, Tom Matthews, who became the screenwriter of Mad City with Dustin Hoffman and John Travolta, the hostage-taking movie.
Yeah.
Costa Gavras.
Okay.
Tom and I would see the envelope there and it was like, whose turn is it to open this thing? Because there was no modems. People mailed you their copy, and
did you blacklight it first?
Yeah, it was a different time. But I got that job, and that job paid so poorly that I had to take a second job in order to be a full-time journalist. And then I was very lucky. After about a year and a half, I got a job as senior editor of American Filmmagazine, which was the official magazine of the American Film Institute, although during the years that I worked there, we had been bought by the same people who owned Billboard.
Oh, wow.
Affiliated publications. They owned the Hollywood Reporter at the time. We reported to the Hollywood Reporter. I had an office on Sunset and Cherokee in the crossroads of the world, which was built in the 30s and it's an office complex in the shape of little villages. Like the front of it is a steamship with a globe that spins. It's still there on Sunset. It's great. It's like the Brown Derby, but
When was this?
This is in the late 80s and through the end of 91.
But you were in LA writing for film and stuff before that?
Yeah, well, I went to grad school in Irvine in 1983 to get an MFA in poetry.
Okay.
And during my MFA years, married and became a dad like that, and decided to pursue a PhD at UC Irvine. And you could do that, move from the MFA program into the PhD program. And I went as far as a master's degree and stopped. And then I taught at community colleges and such, and then stumbled into writing movie reviews.
Just before you were in LA, I talked about this on the show before. My dad was in the mob, and he, depending on where we moved, he would work with different people. And when we were in Southern California, the people he worked with were in film and television. And there was a guy that he was really close with who his name was Ed Sands, and he was a writer who wrote for that show. He worked at Universal, and he was one of the main writers on that show, Heart to Heart. Remember that show?
Of course.
And he actually named the guy Max after my grandfather because he was so close with my dad. the chauffeur of the show.
The Lionel Stander.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And
Lionel Stander, who was blacklisted.
Really?
Yeah.
During the
during the McCarthy era, he went and made movies in Europe for.
No, that I
years.
didn't know. That's interesting.
Did you guys see that film that was just out with
Alas?
Yes. Trumbo. Yeah.
Trumbo.
How was it?
Alas, I did see it. It's a Jay Roach film.
Okay, I'll leave it
Do
at
you know
that.
the works of Jay Roach?
Yes.
He makes the Fockers movies.
Yeah.
He made the Austin Powers movies.
Yeah, so we'll leave it there.
You know, it's got a wonderful performance by Bryan Cranston, and it's filled with interesting stories about Hollywood, but it's a terrible movie.
Wow.
I wouldn't go so far as to say it's terrible, but I'd say it's not that good. Anything that is critical of John Wayne, I'm happy with.
Yeah.
So that was
and
good.
John Wayne was one of the best things in that film.
Yeah, and he just comes
He was
across,
better than Kirk Douglas.
Yeah, the Kirk Douglas guy just was like,
Otto
I'm playing
Preminger was
Kirk Douglas. Yeah.
Well, but see, that was the thing. It was like it was like a 1930s Warner Brothers biopic where people would walk on and say, "Hello, I am Claude Monet.
Yeah.
I painted this. Have you heard of me?" I mean, that's practically the dialogue when you're meeting Otto Preminger and Kirk Douglas and Hedda Hopper. Either treat people like intelligent human beings or don't make the movie.
Yeah.
But you can't tell storybook fashion history in the cinema. It's not built for that.
No.
It's a medium of supposition and insight. You don't want to be told things. In a novel, you can expand. But it's so easy to go from perfect detail to caricature in the cinema if you get it wrong. And this movie was nothing but caricature.
Yeah, it made me either want to see a really good documentary on the same subject,
Exactly,
or I
read a
go out
book.
and find a book.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Or, you know, you see, and the shame of it is there won't be someone else isn't going to do a Trumbo movie and get it right.
Yeah, they're not going to do the
Well, the
definitive
Coen brothers have
Trumbo.
something coming out that might be close.
No, they have Hail Caesar.
Yeah.
Well, whatever they do, I will see it as soon as they let me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a fan of those guys still?
Yeah.
Come on.
Tell me their bad movie. I haven't seen it, and I've seen every inch of work they've done.
Yeah.
You know, Crime Wave, is that their bad movie?
No,
I'll
you know
watch
what it
that
was? What was
anytime.
that one with? I can tell you one bad movie they made. Yeah, the one with
You're
with
mistaken,
Clooney and
Intolerable Cruelty. It's
yes.
hilarious.
No, I love that movie. I thought it was
You're
really-
mistaken.
Wheezy was it? What was the character?
That's not
Wheezy
the first
Joe
time.
with the
Yeah,
asthma.
Wheezy Joe.
Yeah.
The guy takes 5 hits off his asthma inhaler,
Yeah.
and Clooney's line to his, "Are you Wheezy Joe?" And Cedric the Entertainer, because I'm Clarence, I'm about kicking asses. You want asses kicked? You come get me. Nailing asses.
What about the
Nailing
one
asses.
with Tom Hanks?
The Lady Killers, it's
Yeah,
great.
Lady
Lady
Killers.
Killers begins with one of the funniest robbery scenes ever in the donut shop.
That's one of the few ones I've never seen, by the way.
Lady Killers, you haven't seen it?
I went on the press tour for the Lady Killers. I went to San Francisco. I had an hour with Joel and Ethan together, an hour with Hanks, and then round tables with Marlon Wayans and with he just won the Oscar, J.K. Simmons.
Okay.
And who the heck?
I loved that drum flick. It was great that Simons was in. J.K.
Yeah.
What was it called? A Drumline. No, I'm kidding.
No.
I'm kidding. The fucking
Whiplash.
Whiplash. Anyway, yeah. So you got to sit with them, huh?
Yeah. And I laughed my ass off at that movie. There's a scene early on in the donut shop where these two guys, it's a donut shop in a black neighborhood run by Vietnamese people, and these guys come in and they're all hyped up and they're sticking the place up. And the Vietnamese guy behind the counter sticks both his fingers up the guy's nostrils. And while he's, the guy's like, let go of my boy's nose, let go of his nose. The wife turns around and throws a pot of coffee in the second guy's face. It's hilarious.
Right, I'll have to watch it.
It's hilarious.
I don't know why I never saw
Sounds
that one.
pretty funny.
But the Coens are such great physical comedians. They know how to film a gag. Look at Raising Arizona is a live-action Looney Tunes.
Yeah. Oh, God, that's so brilliant.
The shootout
film.
scene in Albert Finney's bedroom in Miller's Crossing.
Crossing, yeah.
Sequences in
What's the matter? Did somebody hit you, the little fat kid in Miller's Crossing? Unbelievable.
Oh no, yeah, no. What did you have? What did you have for lunch? A hot dog.
Yeah.
What else? Mustard. And then John Polito was like, "Oh, listen, my kid." He says, "Pick a hand. Which hand has the shiny penny in it?" And the kid taps on the head. He says, "Pick another hand." And the kid picks the same hand again. So he hands him the penny. They're hilarious.
Yeah, right.
Anything they do, anything.
What I was going to say is, my dad worked with this guy Ed Sands, and he was a funny cat, right? He was one of those classic guys from the day. He was married 5 times, and when he got thrown out from the one wife, he wouldn't have any contact with them or the kids. He'd move on to the next one, like Jerry Lewis, right? And I was the last kid in the line, the last wife, the last kid, and then he got older, and then suddenly all these ghosts started to haunt him, and so then he realized that he had abandoned all of these families around the country and was going to make up for all of that, not by reinvesting in those people, but by spoiling me rotten and taking me everywhere with him. I was the kid he was going to dump all of his love and attention into for all the other kids he abandoned, which you can imagine how much that made them love me when they came on the scene to reconnect with their dad, right? But he took me everywhere with him, including to these business meetings in like strip clubs and and I'd have to sit in the back in the office and and poker games and stuff because I never. And I remember these mobsters like, "Hey, Cal, no, the kid's not allowed." And he would always
what years is this?
This was 76 through about 85.
And what part of the world?
In New York, but we bounced around a lot. We moved every couple of years. And when we were in California, we were in Northern California for a while, but when we were in LA, he worked with a lot of folks in film. And one of the things he did, he did a lot of stuff, but he would take me to these parties at this guy Ed Sands' house, and the people that were there were like all of these they're mostly television actors from the 70s. So lived in the same complex with Norman Lear. James Coco was walking around all the time. The guy played Horseshack and Welcome Back, Kotter. Nichelle Nichols. I sat on the couch because it's these adults drinking and partying. And I'm just over in the corner in this little Hollywood apartment playing with the Russian dolls. I'll never forget it. I was just sitting over.
This sounds like an apartment complex people moved to during the transition of a divorce.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Showbiz has someone could probably write a great Vanity Fair article about those garden apartments in like West LA.
Yeah, with magnolia trees and the leaves falling into the pool. I remember it like it was yesterday. And they
were like swingers clubs.
Yeah, it was a whole thing going on.
Breakdown and drug abuse.
Yeah, there was a lot of all that going on. A lot of key parties.
Book yet? What's going on?
I don't know. I need to. I remember Nichelle Nichols coming over and talking to me. She told me that story. I was like 6, and she smoked a cigarette out of one of those extender things. It was wild, man. And she told me the story about how she had turned down the role. She's told it since for Star Trek, but then got a call from Martin Luther King Jr. and he kind of encouraged her to take the role because there wasn't an African American woman in an officer role in a science fiction thing, and she was going to be on the bridge, and this was going to be a big thing, so she kind of took the role. Is that a true story? I mean, I remember
I've heard the story many times.
I was like 7 when it was
either.
It's a nice story on the one hand, and on the other hand, I'm thinking, did he not have other work? I was like, tell me what's going on in Hollywood. What do the trade papers say about the casting of TV shows? Someone brought it to his attention, clearly.
Right. But I mean, at the time, there was so little television that I guess it would,
oh my God,
claiming space in those narratives is still a big deal, I guess.
We talked earlier about the onslaught of cinema in Portland, Oregon. When I started writing about movies in this town in 1992, there were perhaps 450 new films a year released. That includes film festivals, one-off nights at the Clinton Street or the Northwest Film Center, Warren Miller's skiing movies, and travel movies, that play at the Schnitz for one night. All this, 450. By the time I left the Oregonian 20 years later, to the year, almost to the month, that number had increased over 1,200.
Wow.
That's new releases in Portland, Oregon, playing in a theater where you can leave the house and pay to see. I left before streaming of movies became common. It was just starting.
So
we had talked about this once.
Now it's infinity.
Where you and I remember we're having this conversation that between January 1st and the end of February, we saw more movies in that 2-month time span than the average person saw all year. Because you went to Sundance.
By a factor of 3.
And you'd see a ton of stuff at Sundance, and then the Portland International Film Festival would come along.
Real music.
And you'd be like, maybe sometimes 3-4 movies in a day.
And all in those days, it was less common to have screeners, so we were seeing the late year films from New York and LA that are the award consideration type movies. Something like Revenant, we wouldn't have seen until January.
Yeah, no, it was a crazy time, and then I ran a film festival for 4 years. Which was
also early in the year.
So that I had to watch everything that was submitted, even if it didn't make it in. So there was 1 year where I saw like 4,000 or 5,000 movies.
Oh my God!
1 year, and it was just like, and I was I was doing the math, and I was like, this is you give your life over to this thing that does not give that much in return. And I remember going to Sundance one year, and there was a bunch of us in the condo, and you get your press pass so you could go to the screenings, but they have the library where you check out movies, and Slamdance had their library, and we had a stack of movies at the condo, and if you weren't going to and from and in the theater, you were watching a movie, and there was a day where I watched 12 movies in a day, and I was up for over 24 hours, and
what keeps you two going? Like, at what point do you get overwhelmed?
I get overwhelmed well before the point he just described. I can tell you that. I used to go to Sundance and I'd see 5 movies. I think I did a 6-movie day once. You learn it's a grueling thing. It's like it's your busy season. If you're in the restaurant business, perhaps there's a trade show week where you're just burning the candle at both ends. There's a social element to it. It was like going to camp because you saw people you only saw once a year. I probably went to 9 Sundances. And it was a great mesh with Portland because Portland audiences were so receptive throughout the years I was doing this to films that play at that festival. There's a sweet spot of Portland films. It's always been the case that in commercial cinema, Portland ranks about 22nd or so, which is where it ranks in population and as a TV market and as a radio market. But for independent and for films like Star Wars and Star Trek and Star Avengers and Guardians of the Stars, for those movies, we rank right where we should. For independent and art and alternative and documentary and foreign cinema, we jump to like 12 or 10.
Oh, wow.
Because a lot of the towns that are bigger than us don't have the same film culture. They're big towns like Houston. But you don't think of Houston as a place where arty people are who want to see different things.
Right.
So it makes sense. But also, Portland has always had neighborhood theaters. And I point this out to people all the time. You draw a line from City Hall to the Hollywood Theater and use that as a radius. There are more screens in that circle dedicated to alternative film of some sort than there are to commercial Hollywood films. And the only downtown that I've ever been in of a city of more than 1 million people that has that phenomenon with more screens that are alternative than commercial is Paris, France. It's the only place on earth that I know of where, by its size or not, larger than 1 million, you can see more offbeat stuff than onbeat stuff on a given day.
So one of the questions I had for both of you is film in trouble in terms of going and sitting in a theater and watching movies with streaming and with so many good writers going into television, right? So we were just talking about the Coen brothers. Have either of you seen like the Fargo series?
I have not.
I'm been of the opinion that there's so much more room to develop characters over, like a season of True Detective than you have in an hour-and-a-half film. The production value in something like Boardwalk Empire or something, there's very little difference anymore. What you're watching is serialized film in a lot of cases. And sometimes it's hard for me to go back to cram into an hour and a half trying to connect to a character again. It's really difficult because I want to sit with Walter White for 9 years, and I can't do that in a film. You know what I mean?
But this is why the ideal written medium for source material for the cinema is the short story. You can take a short story and take 120 minutes and flesh it out. A novel, you hack down. So you're comparing short fiction to novels. Cinema, going to the movies, is, among other things, being a place where 15-year-olds can make out, being a way just
put
to
your
get
junk
the
in the
voice.
popcorn.
Yeah,
I've been there.
Before,
Don't
you know,
tell me
to
I'm
get
not
the
trying
voices
that.
out of your head because it's fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's something to do. People say, you never hear people say, I'm feeling kind of bored. Let's go to the ballet. But they say every day, let's go to the movies. And this is not a slam on ballet. It's just a recreation activity in our lives in a way that other art forms that are similar are not. It's much closer to turning on the TV than it is to going to a museum.
Yeah.
For most people.
And there's so much has changed in the last 10 years or so, to the extent that like Sundance Film Festival is getting ready to happen right now. And like I'd forgotten about it.
Wow.
And
that wouldn't have even happened 10 years ago.
Yeah, but 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, if you loved film, if you loved cinema, you knew what the really great films that were coming out of Sundance were and what had won the Audience Choice Award and all that sort of stuff. And nobody knows these things anymore. There's no publications anymore that are dedicated to film, other than what Entertainment Weekly is like.
It's not dedicated to film.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been a house ad for Time Warner since
forever.
it started.
So you know, where do you go? It's interesting because I was telling somebody this the other day. You know, like when Sex, Lies, and Videotape came out, which was in '89, which was sort of the film that put Sundance into the public consciousness. That movie you wouldn't even know about it in this day and age. It's
true.
The biggest film, the last big film out of Sundance was a movie called Dope, which hardly anybody saw.
Well, Sundance, winning Sundance has never guaranteed anybody,
Exactly.
and being the biggest selling thing. I think what's different is when it happened at Sundance, that was news.
Yes.
But now something happening at Sundance is not news.
Yeah,
and because something is happening every frickin' day.
Yeah.
Because there used to be 400 movies and now there's 1,400 movies.
Yeah.
And you think that's a good thing?
No. Well, yes. You know, where's your bandwidth at?
Yeah.
You know,
it democratizes the process,
well,
but also
it balkanizes it too, because we used to have a common culture, and now we have one, and we still have a common culture, but it isn't built around the same angle on the experience to the extent that it used to be. We used to go to the cinema and see the thing as a group. Now we talk about it, or we see clips of it online, or you know, the ways in which we experience it are so myriad that in many ways you don't need to have seen the thing to have had the experience.
You know, and people used to watch Carson and then talk about it the next day, but now people DVR stuff and watch clips of Fallon later, and so they consume it still, but differently in a different time.
They consume it differently. But as to the question you asked, is it going to affect film? You got to remember that the film companies own the cable companies. They own they own the internet companies that stream your stuff. No, General Electric still owns your ass. And whether they get your money at a Regal Cinema and you also spend money on Mars products in the candy counter, or whether they get it when you use your internet, or they don't give a shit.
Right.
So it's all product to them.
What's interesting though is that there is now this opportunity for more and more for alternative voices, at least to get something made and out there. Well, you know, will it get a platform? Will it get seen? I don't know. But there was that movie Tangerine, which I thought was really interesting. It was shot on an iPhone 6, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it's all about transgender issues. And it's, you know, a lot of people liked it. I mean, it's bulky, but it's they're trying. You know, they're starting. The great thing when we bring Spike Lee up again is that whole film was shot on DV. And Lucas shot that Star Wars on digital video, but they were cameras that he had made for like $500,000 a piece or whatever. But the Bamboozled was shot on something you could get from Best Buy.
Underrated thing about George Lucas, by the way, a technical innovator his whole career, a benefactor of the tech community, by the way. People in that community, and they love him for the work he did to, you know, Pixar.
I'm going to give him a masterpiece too of Howard the Duck, which was Phenomenal.
You know,
please.
Edison made shitty movies too.
Yes, he did.
You know,
and he wasn't a nice person. He was kind
and
of
the Lumieres. It's the backlash to the backlash on George Lucas has begun because he did the most magnanimous thing. He let the kids who know better take over. He did the most magnanimous thing. He's still sitting there like Scrooge McDuck counting his shekels.
Well, I'll ask you guys this about Star Wars before we go on, and who even knows how long this segment is, but I want to ask you about your books and about before we get out of here. But two things. There's one theory out there that says that Star Wars ruined cinema, that the 70s were the sort of great period of American cinema and Star Wars killed it because it took us from these really tough, introspective, deer hunter kinds of movies to, blockbusters. And then there's another theory I was reading about that says, you know what, Abrams' Star Wars should make us realize how good the prequels were. And it's for this reason, because all JJ did was something safe. He's a technician, but he took A New Hope and just retold it with better effects and changing a little bit more diversity in the cast. But other than that, it's another Death Star, it's a droid with a thing in it, or in the desert, the kid that go to a cantina. It's almost scene for scene. He hasn't added anything to the mythology, really. But what Lucas tried to do, as much as we all thought he failed, was actually develop the mythology, like the midi-chlorian thing.
Not all of us.
Yeah, right.
I am on the record. I'm pro-prequel.
You're pro-prequel.
I was pro them at the moment.
Go
I'm
ahead.
notorious. I can tell you the critics in America who esteemed that film, print critics, who wrote as positively about those films as I.
You okay?
And one was Roger Ebert, and one was Janet Maslin at the New York Times.
Wow.
But I always felt that it was this mathematical puzzle he'd set himself up to do. Rather like the DeNiro sequences in Godfather 2, he was showing us a thing that was iconic, and he had already written the ending, but he had promised us 6 hours of cinema to get there.
So Peter Jackson has to deal with too.
A little bit, except this guy is set his own parameters, and then had to live with decisions he'd made 30 years prior, 20 years prior. To me, it was interesting, and they were visually compelling. And I'm sorry, but it's movies, moving pictures. The cinema, to me, is more than scripts. I valorize mise en scène above scripts every time.
Really?
It is very rare that I will be moved by the story the way I am moved by a sequence of editing or a juxtaposition, a specific edit, or the cinematic, the use of actors in large form on the screen, screen acting where the actor gets to be plastic and play the scene again and again until they have something exactly the way they want. Theater is a different beast for actors. So to me, that's much more interesting than the story. So I don't give a fuck about the prequel stories because I didn't give a fuck about the original
story. Yeah. It's not like
I watched them because they were great movies, and Lucas remained a great movie maker. Those movies have this stateliness of Cecil B. DeMille and John Ford films. They're really classic, beautiful cinema.
David, what about you?
And the stories are stupid.
Yeah.
Who cares?
He
cares.
I was one of those, as a kid growing up, I saw the original films, and by the time Return of the Jedi had come out, I was at an age where I was like, okay, this is what it is. The prequels didn't quite do it for me. But what I find troubling is the amount of conversation on a almost global, definitely on a global level about these films, when it's like there's so many better films out there.
Right.
There's so many great books out there, and so much great music, and it
there's
was
better space movies out there.
Yeah, and so to me, it's like, okay, yeah, great, I get it. You feel this way about this movie, but like you're giving us way too much time, and the internet has provided a forum for everybody to become a critic. Everybody was a critic beforehand, but they didn't all have the same, the opportunity to have their opinions known. And so, honest God truth, I can't tell you the last film review I read. I don't
There are better space movies out there. Did you guys see The Signal in 2014? That was an okay movie. That was interesting.
I saw that at Fantastic Fest.
Yeah.
Fantastic Fest. You must go.
Okay.
It's like movies you will love and the world's greatest barbecue in one town.
It's called Fantastic Fest.
It's it's in Austin. It's put on by Alamo Drafthouse at the first Alamo Drafthouse. It's a week-long alternative genre festival. They've been doing. They must be on about their 10th or 12th now. It was founded by Tim League of the Drafthouse and Harry Knowles of Ain't Cool News. They're the co-founders. And there's a lot of premieres, a lot of international genre cinema, all kinds of things.
What about back to Star Wars real quick before we get off a bit? What about we had David out at the school with Walida and Marisha and Adrian Brown to talk about Octavius Brood, and you guys played that great Mumia piece from the book about his take on Star Wars. Mumia Abu Jamal talking about how Star Wars gave Americans in the 70s, especially white Americans, the ability to side with the underdog again. When the dust settled post-Vietnam, it had become clear that we were the new empire, and there was a lot of Americans that couldn't handle that message, and so Star Wars let us not have to handle it and push ourselves back into an ideal of identifying with the underdog.
Does he talk about Rocky? Because he's a Philadelphia guy.
Because Rocky did it before.
Rocky does it with race.
And
with
you go
Apollo
to Philly.
Creed but Apollo Creed is the evil empire in that narrative.
Yeah, and the funny thing about that too is you go to Philly now and there's still a Rocky statue, but not a Joe Louis statue.
And for that matter, Joe Louis is Detroit.
Not Joe Louis. Who's the great Philly fighter?
Joe Frazier.
Frazier is what I meant. Frazier.
James Earl Jones and the Darth Vader costume are also black guys.
Yes, but you take off the helmet and it's Uncle Fester with Thad.
No, but he doesn't get the helmet off him in the first movie.
Yeah, not till the third movie.
Third movie. Yeah, he's all milky in the third.
He was something, right? He was like a chocolate figurine you left in the car.
Something was wrong with that third
Except
Darth
white
Vader.
chocolate.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Is alive.
In the mic.
Because the actor that was hired to do the part, was actually white, and they didn't like his voice.
Yes.
And so they dubbed in James Earl Jones because he had that majestic.
Yeah. No, it's great casting, but I'm just saying,
That's the real actor.
Yeah,
Mumia, the Philadelphia guy, doesn't see it in Apollo Creed playing the Darth Vader
role. He might,
and Rocky is the Rebel Alliance.
It's interesting.
Same
motif.
Doesn't really win. Rocky loses that fight.
Yeah.
Yep. Which is what makes that movie great.
Right. By the way,
it's what makes it great. Also, is that Stallone didn't direct it. He's directed everyone since except for Creed.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It's
and the two best Rocky movies he didn't direct. But in that first movie, there's what's the most iconic image of him? Not in the ring, but is the one where he's in the doorway with the chin-up bar. And he's in a frame. It makes him look littler. And there's the scene the night before the fight when he's in the ring at the Spectrum and he's looking up at the big banners of himself and Apollo Creed. And again, Rocky is a little guy, and there's this cartoon Rocky. And every Rocky movie after that is about that cartoon Rocky. That was the only one that was about the man.
You can skip 2 through 6 or whatever.
I mean,
come on now.
2 is entertaining. After that,
hang on a second. I'm going to make a pitch for the Mr. T one. That's
no. You want Mr. T?
Come on, Creed.
Brigitte Nielsen, Dolph Lundgren.
No, the Mr.
Keep
T.
them all.
Hey, woman.
Keep Rocky Balboa, which was a shitty movie.
Yeah, but there's a scene. Mr. T had feathered earrings on in one of those scenes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
You can look at that on a Tumblr now. You don't need to 2 hours of your life to it. You don't need to stroke Sylvester Stallone's ego to achieve that.
He's the only dude in the world shorter than Sly, too, to play it.
Is he?
Mr. T's like 5'2".
But Nancy Reagan looks... Mr. T?
Yeah, he's short cat, man.
I thought he was a bodyguard.
Yeah, he was, but he was small dude. 5'8". No.
5'8".
Mr. T?
No, Sly.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, Sly is tiny. Sly made a movie in Oregon. Sly made Assassins, Richard Donner.
Yep.
I was on the set with Joel Silver yelling in the phone at people.
No kidding.
With Antonio Banderas.
Yeah.
So before we get out of here, I want to ask you a little bit about the books. The most recent one is the DeNiro one, yeah?
I wrote DeNiro, A Life, which came out in October of 2013.
Wow. And what made you decide to write a book on Bobby D?
He's someone I grew up with as a film lover. He's someone whose career I knew really well. I had just done a book on Paul Newman, and my publisher and editor and I were interested in doing another big biography of a major American acting figure.
I got to see Paul Newman race in Riverside, California once. I got to actually go see him live race.
Nice.
He was serious about it.
He was serious about it.
and got kind of good.
He more than got kind of good. He finished second at the 24 Hours Le Mans in a Porsche.
That's amazing.
He was in the car. He was about 9 seconds from taking a checkered flag at Le Mans. Paul Newman. He was in his 50s.
Yeah.
And he at the time I wrote the biography, which came out in 2009, he was the oldest person in the world ever to win a sanctioned auto race.
Wow.
He won a race when he was like 72.
No kidding.
It's like a stock car race in some tiny track somewhere, but
still,
dude was 72.
And then he had some amazing, unless I'm wrong, the humanitarian work through that.
Oh my God! He's given the Newman Foundation and Newman's own charities. At the time I wrote the book, had given away nearly $500 million.
Wow.
And much of it by Newman bespoke, choosing who to give it to, sending a refrigerator to the reservation school in New Mexico where the kids were complaining that their milk got warm.
Sometimes having a few bucks is a real cool hand.
Yeah, God bless. God bless. Paul Newman was a saint. Robert De Niro was not. But at the end of Newman, the idea was to find someone who hit my personal sweet spot as someone, because it's a big project. It's 180,000 words. Those books. They're 400 or 500 pages with apparatus and bibliography and notes and. I go from, I try and bring the family into light by showing where his grandparents, big figures in any person's life, because they're the people who raised the people who raised you, and you often know them, the milieu of the world, what work their parents did, what values they may have learned. You wind up writing a lot about the person, so you better like them at some level. They're in your head for 2-3 years. And I thought I could stand De Niro for that long.
And did you find anything out in writing the book that surprised you that you didn't know?
I should hope so. Yes, it's a meaty tome indeed.
Yeah, okay.
And most of what's in there I learned, from looking.
I guess let me re-ask that. Can you share a little bit with us?
Here, this is the nerdy bit. This is my favorite part of these books. Is De Niro donated his production and research files to the University of Texas in Austin. And I would go, Fantastic Fest week, and spend my days in the Harry Ransom Center at the University of Texas, which is an amazing research facility that has a lot of endowed money to acquire collections of things. They have the papers of Stella Adler, of Tom Stoppard, of David Mamet, of Paul Schrader, and they have 2 18-wheel trucks worth of paper and costume archives of Robert De Niro.
Wow.
And I spent, all told, about 5 weeks in Austin, in that library, from the minute it opened till the minute it closed, touching every piece of paper in De Niro's hand, scripts, reviews, interviews, story ideas, memos, telegrams from friends after, he got an Oscar nomination, scripts that he had as a dinner theater actor in North Carolina in 1966, notes to himself about what props he was bringing to a student film that he appeared in 1963.
Wow.
And I got to go through all that stuff. I'm the first person to write about his life who saw any of it.
Wow.
Any of it. Letters with Elia Kazan, 20-page transcript of him and Michael Mann talking that Mann recorded for Heat. His script of Taxi Driver that says in the note, lonely, 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 think of the girl you saw on 14th Street. What is that?
Yeah, wow.
His note on the Godfather 2 script, show nothing, think of your father here.
Wow.
I'm sorry. For a biographer, that's like I'm using a putty knife and diamonds are falling out of the wall.
That's remarkable.
And I did that for weeks, and that's the story I told. How does Robert De Niro come to exist, and then what does Robert De Niro do?
Wow. David, let me ask you a few questions.
Sure.
What do you got going on? You just had a great year doing some stuff for DC, right? You did the Shaft reboot?
Well, I did the Shaft reboot for Dynamite Entertainment.
Okay.
DC pulled me into their clutches for a little while, and now I'm doing a little song and dance with Marvel Comics.
Wow. So you're like the J.J. Abrams. You're working for both.
Yeah.
Both worlds.
Yeah, I don't foresee being with DC too much longer. But that's just sort of the nature of the business. It's all about it's all work for hire. It's all freelance.
Yeah.
And so you go with whoever pays you the most because you can then buy the more bullets.
Yeah.
So, so it's been a really interesting time.
Can you talk about those projects yet, or not really?
Yeah, well, with DC, I was writing a book called Cyborg, which was Cyborg's a member of the Teen Titans, or was a member of the Teen Titans back in the 80s. Kids love that character. He's never had his own book, so they brought me on to sort of launch him in his own sort of solo endeavor, because Warner Brothers plans on doing a film in 2020.
Oh, that's cool.
And then I relaunched Shaft for Dynamite Entertainment, both as a comic book and as a novel. And then now I'm working on the sequel to the comic book. And there was 7 novels. Ernest Tidyman wrote 7 Shaft novels total. And so, which most people don't remember at this point. They think of the films.
Yeah.
But I've been, working with the estate to get that going, and sort of became entrusted with that. And
that's really cool.
And so the first novel, Shaft's Revenge, which is the first novel since 1975, that comes out February 2016, I think. I can't seem to get a date out of the publisher, because then they owe me more money when the book comes out. So the final check is due. And then over at Marvel, I'm working on 2 books right now. The primary focus is on a book called Power Man and Iron Fist. Power Man's real name is Luke Cage, and so a lot of people might know Luke Cage now from the TV series Jessica Jones.
Jessica Jones,
Netflix.
yeah, which is awesome, by the way.
And Luke gets his own show sometime in 2016. So
do you get to put your name in the hat to do any screenwriting for that stuff, or does this is it just down the line?
I doubt that I would ever get the opportunity to do that, but that show's already, they're in post-production as we speak.
Yeah.
Maybe season 2, but they
Cyborg or any of that?
Cyborg, I don't think so. I don't think that Warner Brothers and or I should say DC and I don't think we're going to be friends with benefits at any time in the future. I think that
not digging the cut of their jib, huh?
Yeah, I think the work is done. And the difference between Marvel and DC is I do think that Marvel had read a lot of my work and knew the sort of work who they were hiring, what I was all about. I think they had a better sense of that, and so
that's got to give you a better feeling.
Yeah, and
it's
just it is what it is. You can't take stuff too personally. You're always working with other people's characters, other people's property, and I think that as a writer, the key is that as a writer, I think of characters. But the publishers think of them as property, and so right there is this weird ideological split.
That's fascinating.
And so there's this. You find yourself lobbying for these characters like they're people, and like the big corporations, they don't care. They're like, we just want to make money. So. It's a really I never realized it would be like that. That was life is nothing is life in life is as we think it will be, and then to find yourself sort of arguing over the fundamental human rights of a character that is not real, that is also part robot, that is it's like it just becomes sort of weird.
You're like, my advocacy is taking a turn.
Yes, and so what ends up happening is it's more about my own original projects, whether it's in prose fiction or in comics, and really wanting to explore some of that. And it was it was interesting because when Shawn, I can't remember which book it was. It might have been The Last Playboy, but we were talking about that, and I'd been wanting to write a book for so long, and Shawn had said something to me to the effect of, well, it's just, a book is 100,000 words, and so how many words do you generate per week? And there was this like mathematic equation that suddenly made it seem like I can write a book.
Wow.
And for me, as a critic, I stumbled into it, and it was pretty early on that I knew I did not want to make a career out of writing what other people were doing, of sort of being this, looking at it and going, well, this is what's right and this is what's wrong.
Art, yeah.
Yeah, I would just rather be making either the mistakes or having the triumphs, and then let somebody else discuss what I was doing.
You're making, yeah.
And so it was really interesting because I still do that as a writer. I think to myself, okay, if I just put in, a minimum of 2,000 words a day. In 50 days, I'll have a 100,000 word draft, and then and so it's to me, there's frustrations being on this other side of the fence. It's like you've moved to the other side where the grass is a different shade of green. But I would much rather be on the side of the fence where I'm the creator versus the critic. And it's not that there's anything wrong with criticism, but it's just two completely, it's very, very different worlds.
I think it's a disposition thing too. As I remember, you were not of the breed, isn't this wonderful that we are film critics here and doing this? There was definitely a cynicism and a knowing distancing, but there was also a little bit of dyspepsia in there, which didn't make it any less charming, of course.
That's an interesting question for both of you, and we really are going to wrap up here. Mike's killing me. We had a 2-hour final segment. Totally ignored anything, but that's all right. I was so excited about how well the game show went, and I just thought we'd roll with it. Writing as a critic and then writing either in terms of the work you're doing or in the books that you've written, those are two different kinds of writing. And do you approach them differently? Do you feel,
yes.
Do you feel more compassion for artists when you're an artist yourself than you do when you're a critic? Do you know what I mean?
Not compassion, but comprehension.
Okay.
Comprehension
of the inside of the creative process.
Yeah, and also I've written about people who I write about at length and in depth, who's then I'm writing about in short bursts in their ongoing film career.
Yeah.
There are people who I've written books about who are still working, whose work I review.
Yeah.
One or two, and they're just two different things. The Oregonian in its height sold 500,000 papers on a Sunday every week. And my name would be in that paper, and nobody knew anything about that. And I would write a book that they would print 1/40th as many, 10,000 copies.
Yeah.
But when you hold a book in your hand, you feel like you have a relationship with the author. People don't feel that way about newspapers. That's, for me as a writer,
that's true.
That's a different contract I'm signing.
Yeah, that's true.
So I want to talk, I want the book to be a long, well-crafted thing. The newspaper can be flippant. Newspapers like Twitter. 500 words is a long movie review in a newspaper.
I've been dying to ask somebody this. Have either of you ever been pressured by film companies to give positive reviews? You never felt like you were going to stop getting invited to shit if you trashed a film, or that?
No. If you
they would send guys with earpieces.
I mean, I got yelled at by some publicists before for, I can't believe you said this, and I was like, I can't believe you released this movie. But no, there was never.
You were writing at an alternative weekly.
Yeah.
If you didn't do that, you weren't doing your job.
Right.
I was at a daily paper. But it's not about them. It's not about the people. If you say so and so is an asshole, which I couldn't in my paper, but you could in yours. I could see them getting pissed off at you. But if you said this is bad work,
what are you going to do?
What are they going to say? No? Okay. That's 1 vote for, 1 against.
I got for a very brief time, and I keep, this is the always thing I do at the end of the show. I go right before we close, and then I go on for 40 fucking minutes, but we do have to close, but I want to get 2 quick things in here. I briefly wrote film reviews for a website called dtheater.com, and I got a screener once for that What the Bleep Do We Know? Remember? Yeah, for that movie, right? Yeah.
You got a screener for that. That's a Portland movie.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. So, lucky me.
The trick was not to get a screener.
Exactly. Well, here's the thing, right? Yeah, at the time I thought I was bigwig. So I watched the film and I write this review. And I shit you not, and I trashed it, and I got to interview the director, and I said something like, because they were trying, you remember what they were trying to do in the film, and I think there was a sentence in there that said something like, this film fails on every level. I could see what they were trying to do by blending these elements of fiction with science and storytelling and stuff, but they didn't do it. Had they achieved it, it would have been a very remarkable work of in form and in content or something like that, right? I don't remember the exact quote directly. So they took, before the thing blew up and went everywhere, they took the quote, a remarkable work of form and content, and put it on the poster.
Yeah.
And I was so happy to have been quoted by somebody, right? I was like, I'm not even mad, even though the review was, they didn't do that, right? But if they had, right? But they took the first part of it and put it on the film poster.
You gotta love the vulgarity of showbiz.
Oh my God, right? If I wasn't so vain, I would be complaining right now. But I was going to go ahead and leave it up, right? Because I'm just so enamored of my name on the goddamn thing. But then Ebert and people reviewed it, and then they bumped me and they re-released the poster because they got bigger. Gene Shalit.
There was a sequel. They made a second.
Yeah, they did, which I thankfully didn't see the sequel. I did see the first one.
It didn't enjoy its NPR-ish moment of fame.
No, not so much.
Yeah.
Shawn, where can people find your work, man? Where can they connect with you and find the books?
These days, well, everything I write is on Amazon. I'm on Twitter at Shawn Levy. I have a ShawnLevy.com where I post my work from KGW.
Yeah.
It used to have my Tumblr appear there. The Tumblr is dormant. I have a new Tumblr idea. And I've got a book coming out in the fall, Dolce Vita Confidential.
That's the next one.
Norton.
Oh, that's great. And that'll make your, what, 6th book?
8th.
Wow.
I used to tell people I want to write 8 books. I have no idea why I said that.
No kidding.
And now I'm like, please, God, let me write more books than you can count.
Yeah.
Because I realize 8's finite, and I'm not done.
You're not done yet. You got more to say. You thinking about something else?
Yes, I want to write a memoir about my time in the Timbers Army and the culture of Portland and soccer. It would be a short book. It would be very personal and filled with hilarious stories and I think inspiring stories. And there are film subjects I want to write about. One of them is in the news today. I think I might be able to endure it, and I could write a biography of Sean Penn.
Oh, wow.
He's had an interesting life. I think I could write a biography perhaps of Tom Hanks or Meryl Streep.
I heard Sean Penn just met with El Chapo,
El
right?
Chapo.
Secretly, and they had an
not so secretly.
Yeah. Since I heard about
Rolling Stone.
Yeah.
But at the time. There are good subjects out there still. I have ideas for noir novels set in old Hollywood. So
a lot more to come from you, man.
I'm hoping, mate.
Thank you for being on the show so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the Winterhawks tickets.
Oh, no doubt. You stole them right out of the hands of David Walker.
Stole with craft.
We enjoy your reviews on KGW because to me they harken back to those old school film reviews. You kind of have this like funny, engaging TV personality, but then you're there talking about the films. I remember watching like I said, Shalit and those guys in the day, and they always had this kind of funny on-air persona that was Malton, and it was very different from any of the other talking heads on the screen, and I think you kind of embody that. Bring
cheers.
that back.
It was a hard thing to do, learning how to talk in 2 minutes on television. I had to develop a voice, and then a way of dressing, a way of sitting in the chair, a way of looking at the lens. I learned it all on the job.
Wow.
It's cool. I don't get paid to do that. I do it because I enjoy it.
Wow. Have you seen that Louis C.K. episode where they're trying to get him ready to take over the Tonight Show? Is the theme, like it's not for real, but they hire David Lynch as like the guy that get him ready, but he doesn't play David Lynch. He plays like a TV guy that preps people for how to be on TV, right? And so it's him working with Louis C.K. on how to stand in front of the camera, how to do the monologue. It's a fucking amazing thing. Yeah, you don't watch a lot of TV, I notice.
No, not much.
That's amazing. That cracks me up. That's like finding out. It's like a scoop for me for some reason.
I watch a lot of soccer. I watch 6, 8 hours, 10 hours of soccer.
But then after the movies and that, you really don't want to be in front of the screen after that.
My thirst for filmed narrative is often quite slaked. Yes.
David, what do you got going on, man? You told us a little bit. Where can people find your stuff?
I'm on Twitter at David Walker 1201. That's the most consistent place. The David Walker site is one word, thedavidwalkersite.com is a sort of portal to everything else where you might need to find me. I never update that.
And they can find like the badass mofo and that stuff from the day on there.
Yeah, all the links are there. And I just sort of, I waste too much time on social media. I'm trying to figure out how to spend less time there, and that way I can write more. And
your posts are always informative and inspiring and challenging, so I hope you still waste some time on social media so the rest of us can follow you.
Okay.
Didn't Shaft and some of the other comics get on some top 20, top 10 lists for last year?
Yeah.
It was
kind of interesting. Yeah, a couple different websites named it top. Like one of the best books of 2015.
Yeah, look at that.
Couple websites named me top writer. Hollywood Reporter just did a piece, top 5 comic writers to watch in 2016.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's holding out, this guy.
That's awesome.
Right, Mr. Humble.
But again, this is like someone else's life that I look at.
Well, you know what? That guy's got to eat too. So let's, here's hoping that he has a successcul year.
You think with all that,
2016 is going to be a good year.
With all those credentials, you think you'd have got more questions right in my damn contest?
Yeah, well,
no, I'll tell you, man. What you were going to say?
He's not in a trivia contest.
Yeah, he's got more important things to do with his life. We appreciate you being on, David.
Yeah, thank you.
All the
what
successes.
a great surprise! Thank you.
Yeah, this was really good.
That was awesome. It really
when
was.
I reached out to him and he said he'd be happy to do it.
Yeah, of course.
And
I would have done the same if you'd asked if you were talking to David. So there you go.
Yeah.
Portland has become kind of a comic town, huh? Mark Russell's doing well in comics. I've talked to Kelly Sue DeConnick and folks. You're doing well, so there's people doing well in the comic industry now.
Yeah, doing not bad.
That's great.
I'm going to go home and do some writing tonight.
All right, we're going to let you folks out of here because everyone's got to go. And so these folks have been great. David Walker, Shawn Levy, thank you so much for being on the program. Listening to On the Block Radio, folks. Who even knows if we're still recording? Our last segment of 6.5 hours. This thing has never been turned on for the whole night, so we're gonna have to redo this if you guys don't mind for the next 4 hours. And we will see you folks on the other side. Thanks a lot.
You've been listening to On the Block with Andrew Gurovich. The show is produced in Portland, Oregon by Michael DiNapoli at MD Productions. Theme music by Cat Power. Closing music by Jonathan Oak. Look us up on the web at ontheblockradio.com, where you can also link to us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Don't forget to tune in next week for a brand new episode. Previous episodes can be found on our website. Thanks for listening.
Oh, you beautiful kitties. Oh, look at you out there. Creators of art, history, thought.